Am I a failure? I swear I saw that video on release.
Doesn't matter.
Put your cocks away, alright?
It was re-uploaded. No. That's why.
Like it's PB, people are just doing stupid builds.
What's the agenda today?
Survive.
Right.
Guda.
Well, no, actually, yes, because you're gonna fucking skip story, so you're gonna.
No, he's doing most likely unit analysis, yep.
Oh, right.
He's got 3 of them. Orky.
I'll get you to some tea, ginger, and honey. Get honey. That's the best remedy.
Au revoir.
One of these days, I'm gonna figure out who those people are. But that day is not today. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Huzzah! Well, that's the first time I've ever seen the YouTube analytics pop in while I'm live. You love dodgeball? Good. Do you love Dogeball, though? Hello, Field. How's it going? You love Lamp? I too love Lamp. Okay, chat, let me get my tweet out here and we should be good to go. Those of you guys that want a TLDR of any of the units, you can check Twitter. I did put that stuff out. I had to chuckle today, chat, as Kotaku released yet another article attempting to bash Starfield, called Skyrim. I was just like, man, these fucking media outlets just can't let it go. The big thing that they're all like up in arms about right now, and I don't even think that's what the article was about, but it's that, like, I guess Bethesda, some of their community support is actually responding to criticisms on Steam, like people's reviews where they're just like, oh, it's boring, blah blah blah. Which, you know, I'm gonna say this. I agree. I think that's perfectly fine of them to actually try to counter stuff like that, because I don't think calling something boring is a legitimate criticism. I think you need to be able to articulate more than just that. But regardless, people are getting upset with them because they're basically trying to say like that's not the case and stuff, and that it's like it's the tone of how they're responding, and I'm like, not really that big of a deal. Like I've seen plenty of other game studios do this where they start responding to people and they basically call out the people that are saying like untrue stuff. I'm gonna say that most of Bethesda's messaging on that stuff was pretty, like, I don't know, tame. Like they weren't really going after people or anything like that. Because I've seen some pretty interesting ones from game devs before. Neo, thank you for the resub. But you know, it is what it is. I can understand that the community wants something to hate and stuff like that, and they're gonna take anything that they can. Yeah, it's not live service, exactly. Yeah, so the article that I retweeted about was Kotaku saying like Starfield, why is Starfield continuing to lose people 3 months later, something like that. And I'm like, because it's a single player game and people beat it and are done with it. Like, I can understand at least some of the criticism being like, well, but it's a Bethesda game. Shouldn't it keep going for years and years and years? And it's like, yeah, and it will. The whole reason that it's going to die out for a little bit now is people have played it. They've done the content. People are waiting on the mods, the mod tools, and basically that stuff to come out. So it's like, I myself am right there in that boat. I don't think that's crazy, right? Like, a little bit, gamers have to have some kind of variety. They can't just play all of one game the whole time or they start to go stir crazy. And I find that really funny that, like, they want to make the mountain out of the molehill on something like that. And people were pointing out, it's like, yeah, the same thing happened to, like, Elden Ring and, like, various other big games where it's like, yeah, 3 months later, they did not have but, like, a tenth of their original population of players. It's like, it's not that crazy for that sort of thing to happen. Because, again, as Digi was pointing out, it's not like it's a live service game. Okay. Wait a minute. That's not the sauce I'm looking for. Yeah, it's a really, like, weird take, and it's kind of why I pointed it out, is it just really feels like it lives rent-free in their heads now. Okay. Think we are good. There we go. All right, chat, do me a favor. Tweet us live. Go give it some love. You guys know how much I appreciate it when you do that. It definitely helps me out. I know I say it every stream, and that's exactly why I continue to say it every stream. If you can dodge an NP, you can dodge a ball. Yes, journalism is hard. I think people really do, like, underestimate how much work goes into real journalism and actually writing stuff. But with the amount of, like, automation, like people using Chat GPT to write articles, people using bait to farm clicks on their web portals and stuff like that, and people just blatantly reporting, like, false stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a legitimate criticism nowadays, is that, like, journalism is not what it used to be, and it's kind of lost all of its integrity. It's not that there aren't people out there that are still doing a good job, it's that there's so many that aren't at this point that it's very difficult to take journalists seriously now, especially within the gaming sphere. They've kind of always been bad in the gaming sphere, because I think in the gaming sphere when it first started out, somebody was assigned to cover it, but, like, nobody actually wanted to. Nowadays, you get people that want to, but they become jaded as they have to review too many things or get paid off or get yelled at by their boss for not, spinning the narrative the way that they want it. Then I think they just mentally check out. So I think regardless that the, like, sort of gaming journalism community has never really had very good people. I can even look at someone that's relatively respected, like Jason Schreier and say that a lot of Jason Schreier's investigative work has an agenda. He's kind of a shill for things. And I've noticed that as I began to see him active on social media and more seeing his responses to things outside of his articles. Because naturally, and I think this is the problem with a lot of social media, you get to see things that you probably should otherwise have no business seeing. You get to see how people really truly think, because a lot of people don't hold back on social media and they view it as their dumping ground, basically, for all their intrusive, terrible thoughts. The reality is, you probably shouldn't. You probably should just keep those thoughts to yourself. A lot of tweets would be better off if they just went unsaid. Same thing with Facebook posts, same thing with Instagram and stuff like that. So. Reddit, yeah, Reddit as well. Okay, let's get this party going. Hello, everybody. I don't have any of those. You don't have intrusive thoughts? Okay. Here is today's artwork. Those of you guys on the YouTube side of things. Accountability, I'd never heard of that, right? There is today's art sauce for you guys over there. Obviously, we have new Guda. I'm going to start out on an A, though, because no one cares about an A, and I've already done everything on an A, so we're just going to very quickly go and spin down the AP on this side of things. The good ones tend to use games as a launching point to do better journalism. Yeah, and like I said, I especially with investigative journalism, I do appreciate when people are willing to do a little bit more work to get their story, right? But certainly if you're purposely targeting things, if you're not taking all sides, right? You're not taking an objective stance. You're instead going into it with a goal in mind for like what you're trying to do. I think that's a little bit of the problem. You should let the story write itself, not write the story and then go try to determine whether or not it's correct. It's the same sort of like backwards science that we see nowadays, where people sort of buck the scientific method and they instead try to like conduct an experiment to achieve an outcome rather than conduct an experiment to see if a hypothesis is correct. So it's very interesting to me to see that really no matter where you go in any field nowadays. Is that new art? Yes, that is new art. Hello, Astral. How's it going? Chastises me for not making such posts. I just post FGO and VTubers, no drama for me. See, I would say that's already, like, one of those posts. Mostly because most people would look at, like, you simping for a VTuber or something like that and be like, oh man, that's weird, right? Like, and I kind of understand why they would think that, but at the same time, it's like, you're not really hurting anyone, so who cares? VTubers are drama. Yeah, I saw, like, I saw the recent drama about, like, the one VTuber that, like, got ousted because they were, like, apparently they were abusing substances while live on stream. They accepted exorbitant donations from personal meetings with people, and they apparently had a private relationship with one of the staff members of the organization, which is wild, but like it is what it is. I saw someone say truly a rock star VTuber at that point. It's like, yeah, that is kind of what that sounds like, right? Like just living it up at that point. But whether or not that sort of thing is real, I don't know. We'll just see. We're so doomed, yes. Well, I think it's on us to, you know, and I think the pendulum swings, right? And so it's always going to be on us to have it swing back the other direction. If people get way too loose and lax in their morals, you're going to head right back into the era of, like, temperance and stuff like that, which is that, like, essentially you end up with all these people like, oh yeah, no, now you can't have anything fun, anything nice. Everything is policed, everything is controlled, right? Feels like I had the heater on the whole day and I'm still cold. Yeah, that was me. You guys can see I'm wearing my jacket again. It's been rough because it's been the first week really that it's been cold here in Florida, and I am not acclimated to it at all. Back to the Puritan ways, yeah. I like art of VTubers. I don't know if that counts. I mean, that's like saying I like art of anime girls, right? Like, because that's usually all it really boils down to at that point. A lot of VTubers sort of take their concepts from anime, anyways, which is wild because then you see like VTubers fighting over who was the original of their design, and it's like neither of you, neither of you were the original. You both stole the concept from somewhere. Like, so it always makes me laugh because it's like the concept of, well, I was first. What was the temperature down there today? It was high 40s, low 50s most of the day. Which, you know, I'm sure most of you guys are gonna be like, that's not cold at all, Cat. I'm like, well, Florida's normally 90 degrees, so it's definitely cold for us. VTuber's just a mass regardless of the ego trip his dog. Yeah, I've tried to say this before that a lot of people, and this is by design, okay? So whenever you're staring a VTuber in the face, and I'm saying this is someone that, you know, full disclosure here, I am eventually going to become a VTuber on you guys. Doesn't mean you'll probably never see my face. It just means that I will probably become a little bit more of a VTuber and you will see my face a lot less, okay? But I think the big thing to keep in mind is that there is a human being behind that. No matter what the persona, the crafted, like, visage that they put on, that's designed to make you not think that that's a person and that this is some idol, this is some character. There is still a person behind it. And as a result, people make mistakes. People fuck up. People say things they don't mean. People end up doing things they shouldn't do against their better judgment. It happens, right? Like, and so I think that's a big thing that people need to keep in mind. But it does seem like, at least within the VTuber culture, a lot of people get caught up in the this is an idol. This is my oishi. This is my, you know, favorite person that, like, they are this, like, put up on a pedestal, like, again, uh sort of like worshipped type character. And I think that's a huge problem for a lot of people because they let stuff slide that they wouldn't otherwise with anyone else. Problem with the VTubers is they keep the facade up every time. Yeah, and I've talked to people about this, that like the VTubers that I like, that I don't mind watching, are usually just normal people for the most part. Like, it doesn't mean that they don't have a persona. It just means that, like, you can tell they're just kind of acting chill and they're not like trying too hard. They're just being themselves rather than trying to like fake something. And I think that's the problem that I had originally with VTubers, is I thought they were all fake. And I see now that over time, that's just my issue with most VTubers. That there are some VTubers that are perfectly normal people that just portray themselves with an anime avatar for whatever the hell reason, right? Like, I've talked with you guys about part of my reasoning for this is that, like, one, it's becoming harder and harder to network on Twitch if you're not a VTuber, but you're in the anime scene. Two is I'm getting a little bit older at this point. I'm not going to say I'm super conscious of my age or anything like that, but I do, like, I don't really want to see a scenario where, like, everyone just starts calling me old and boomer and stuff like that, and then, like, they start treating me like I just don't get it. I just can't, like, empathize or understand whatever the hell is going on. So I feel like at least going a little bit more in the VTuber route of things is going to help that, as it's going to give me a little bit more of a timeless feature. And I understand that is a big reason why a lot of people do it, is like they don't like to show their face, period. So becoming a VTuber gets them the ability to, like, you know, have something for the people to look at. So, Cad, you look fine. Thank you. I appreciate that. No, it's like I said, I don't have any real reservations myself about being on stream. You guys should know this. If I had any reservation about showing my face, would I have been doing this for like 5 or 6 years? Like showing my face. Right? Like, I don't think someone could do that at that point. What do I think of the current state of Hollywood? Ooh, I think so. I had a great conversation about this the other night in Discord. I'm not sure how many people were actually still awake and actually listening to me, but I watched a video the other day, and it was a film critic, sort of type of guy on YouTube, and his video was talking about the marvelization of cinema and shows and stuff like that, and why a lot of our modern media just sucks, right? And a lot of that stuff boiled down to it's not exactly just Marvel, because even Marvel started out really good, if you guys remember, right? Like the original Iron Man movies were awesome. Some of the other movies that came out in the initial phase of Marvel's big push there were good. It's only been now after the fact that everything has to have a witty, quip in it. Everything has to be interconnected. Everything has to reference everything else, that you're starting to get this weird problem. And now, basically, because Marvel has turned all of their stuff into this interconnected multiversal franchise, that everybody else is trying to do the same thing, and that's causing problems. And I think this guy hit it on the head, because he said the real problem with all of this is a concept called basically entropic storytelling. Okay, entropic writing. So it's a funny way of saying it's writing that involves entropy, that, essentially everything you do is meaningless. It's nihilism, if you will. Everything is spiraling out of control. You're all just creeping slowly closer to chaos and the unwinding of the universe, and everything is rather pointless, right? So that's sort of the issue, is when you start making all these quips, when you start having to have a reference to everything and everything else, you have this entropic level of writing. And he said, when you think back to your childhood and you think back to some of the stories that really stick with you to this day, the stories that are important to you, that matter, they're not grim, dark stories. They're not super like dystopian, like type of stories. They're not necessarily this type of story that like involves itself, and I'm not saying they can't be, just that they're not necessarily, because you're bringing up a good example of one that actually isn't entropic, and that's Terminator. So the concept at play here is that the old stories that you used to like were anti-entropic, and what that means is that they didn't embody entropy. They embodied the reverse. That is to say, everything had meaning, everything that you did was with purpose, and there was a reason for everything. Those are the stories that you remember. Those are the stories that are really good, because it allows you to believe and hope that there is something more out there, that there is something really to inspire you, to make you want to do good. Yeah, to have hope for the future, right? And the example he used, because he's a big fan of it, and this is how I ended up watching the video, is Lord of the Rings. And he talked about how Tolkien had very anti-entropic writing, that, the wizard shows up precisely when he means to. That the whole reason that Golem existed within the series, even though everybody hated Golem, Golem was a nuisance, Golem at several points is spared from being killed, despite the fact that he absolutely deserves it. And the whole reason for that is because at the end of Lord of the Rings, you get Frodo up there in Mount Doom holding the ring, standing on the precipice. All he has to do is drop it off. And it is at that moment, completely weakened from his entirety of his journey, that Frodo fails. He doesn't throw the ring in. He finally succumbs to the temptation and says, no, I can't lose this. I need this. And it is at that moment that Golem shows up again. And Golem tackles him because Golem wants the ring. They wrestle for it, and Golem ends up falling with the ring into the lava, thus accidentally undoing the evil. Had they killed Golem, had they treated Golem differently, had they shooed him away more than they tried to, Golem wouldn't have been there for that moment. His entire character would have served no purpose, no being. And yet, in that moment, Golem is the tie that binds it all together. So that's an example of entropic storytelling. And when you look at that, that is missing in most Western media nowadays. And I completely agreed with the guy. I really think that's the huge problem. Because when I look at something like, say, anime, it's full of plot convenience. But at the same time, a lot of it has meaning. A lot of it has value. There's morals in there, and they're usually trying to aim for something. The hero is on a journey, and the hero is trying to succeed, and usually things end up going the hero's way. Not all the time, but usually they do. That's something that's very present in anime, and that is something that, you know, again, looking at it from this perspective, I think anime has very anti-entropic writing. Versus Western shows, Western media, I don't think there's any anti-entropic writing anymore. It's all God is dead, the world is going to hell, and there is, you know, no point to anything that you're doing other than your own individual struggle to survive. That's the big difference, and I think this is why I like anime so much. It's why I like those old stories. It's writing a story where things have meaning, where things have purpose, and they happen in order to make the world a better place, naturally is a more gripping and interesting tale to me, rather than everything is fucked. Right? Like, it's wild. But yeah, that's my very long thought process on Hollywood, is that Hollywood has some major problems nowadays. Hollywood just wants to copy past stuff. It wants to make it all edgier. It wants to make it all doom and gloom, and it basically wants to make you feel like you are alone and pointless in the world. And the reality is you're not, chat. Like, every single life has meaning, and I'm someone that does believe that. That's what I was raised on, so it is interesting to see. Did he actually serve a purpose, though? The Lord of the Rings stories could have been told without him in his role. Yes, but then you wouldn't have had basically the entire premise of temptation. The concept there is that the hero gave everything. He went right up to the precipice and did all that he could. The story of Golem is one of tragedy, but it's also one of redemption in the end. Golem unwittingly redeems himself for all of the dumb shit that he did. Since next JP Christmas is 10 days, is that the new trend? I mean, we assume it's a like 9 or 10 day Christmas, but no, I don't think it's a new trend. I think they just, you know, basically copied things. I don't know if you're caught up with the Apothecary story, but that story's going great. If one just came out, I haven't seen that, but otherwise I'm caught up. Also, he was a guide, the perfect guide, yeah. The new JP banner is an easy skip for me on JP. I mean, that's fine. You guys don't have to roll. This is usually the case with a lot of Guda events, as there is no requirement to roll by any stretch of the imagination. No one is immune to temptation, but restraint is rewarded. Yes. Yeah, the whole point is to try, right? Golem is also a representation of what Frodo would have been like had he succumbed to the ring. Same with Bilbo. Yeah, there's a lot of like analogs there between the two characters. Like, I love Lord of the Rings, don't get me wrong. Could you have written Lord of the Rings without Golem? Yes. Would it have had the same impact as it did? Probably not. I think that is sort of the issue with having each one of those characters. You could take any character out, it just would lessen the story, no matter what you did. How do you feel about Shangri-La Frontier, if you've seen it? Shangri-La Frontier is going okay. I kind of like it. I think the naming conventions in that show are lazy as all get out, but also at the same time it's kind of funny. I think that show is certainly plot convenient. Like it's not the best thing I've ever seen, but I'd say it is a solid like 7 or 8 out of 10 to me. 2 old male SSRs in a row is very surprising. Yeah, I mean, I think as with Trubs, that your second banner is probably a 5-star female. How is him biting Frodo's finger redemption, Cad? He did what he did only for himself. Redemption would have meant that he wanted to help them. He redeems himself. It's like a fool's redemption, IA. So if you can't see that, the big problem with that is you didn't really pay too much attention there. He actually does follow them the whole way, and there are points where he legitimately does feel at least sorry for Frodo and does try to help. We can argue that he's doing it all himself, but I do believe also that there is a little bit of not Golem still in there, a little bit of the Hobbit that Golem used to be still inside of him. Really is going ghosting? Yeah, I mean, I can change her, but I'll have to change her right back later. I did leave her on that for all of yesterday, though, so let's pull her out. If I can find it. There we go. Whoosh. Gives the struggles he went through weight, there was consequence. Yeah, and I think that's the whole point, too. It's to also show that, like, the evil was so evil, the power was so powerful that it corrupted absolutely. It didn't have an escape. He was working on borrowed time. He was making a sacrifice. If Frodo just gets to the end and chucks the ring in, there really was no sacrifice there. Like, it kind of sucked. The journey was long, but, like, he didn't actually, it never cost him anything, right? At that point. So that's where it's like, yeah, I do think it actually matters that those things played out the way that they did in the end. Apothecary comes out on Saturdays, by the way. I think I've watched it all then. I think. Some say second banner is 5-star Kagatora. Yeah, that's my current theory as well. We'll see whether or not that holds true. I teared up at the end. Yep. I mean, I also have Lord of the Rings opinions, but I'll restrain myself. If they're negative opinions, you definitely should. Not that you're not entitled to them, but I'm just warning you, I'll probably go off on. I definitely think there's things that that people look for, you know, like I love Lord of the Rings. That's apparent, right, chat? But I definitely think there's different stories for different people, right? The Hobbit movies were mid. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I said it. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of people that share that opinion. That's not even a controversial opinion. I'll tell you one day. Okay. Favorite moment was the lighting of the beacons. Yeah. Nobu's melting in pee in the TV trailer made me sad. Hope Nobu plays a role in this event. I don't see how Nobu can't, but like Nobu kind of has to, but like we'll see. How big the role is, it just depends. Everyone has the right to an opinion, just some abuse. Yeah, I mean, in general, I ask people to be respectful with it, right? But it is what it is. Favorite servant. Man, how could I show you on my JP account who my favorite servant is? Does that help? Should give you some idea. It could be anyone, it could. Get away from the big fire, yes. Let's keep putting Mama Nobu down in power scale because she's OP. I mean, to be fair, Nobu should kind of be OP. Saber faces? Yes. Particularly this last. It's Janako? You don't even see Janako on this page, so it can't be Janako. What's your least favorite servant? Mephisto. I hate clowns. Not gonna lie, I'd like to see full male Nobu. I'd like to see full mommy Nobu. I mean, what? I hate that man. Yes, the crotch clown. Sigurd noted, sure. One match of Gundam Evolution? Ooh, yeah, that ends soon, doesn't it? I think you guys got like one more day or something. Oh boy, apples. I like how I just got all of my like mailbox filtered out and then like, hey, what if we just rammed like way more courts and stuff? Chat, this is like literally just from like the last day or two. I'm not even kidding. Like that is how much they just blew on to us. Tomoe and honorary Saberface. I do like Tomoe. My JP account has a few non Saberface grails of units that I just really like. My NA account is all Saberfaces, and low key my JP is becoming all Saberfaces other than the ones I've grailed. What was I doing? Should I do the QP daily? Should I do the QP daily? What's your least favorite Saberface? Don't have one. Clowns are the spawns of Doman, yes. I'm happy people really like Saika. I just hope people don't disregard her because of LOL quick. Yeah, I mean, that's always going to happen, right? And this is the problem that I've pointed out to people time and time again. For instance, I'm going to throw one of my mods under the bus here. Avalon really loves Okuni, right? And Okuni is not a bad character. I didn't roll for Okuni because I had other adequate placements. But there's a ton of other people that will still take that same approach as me, but they will try to like shit on Okuni purely because she's quick. I don't understand that. Like, I understand maybe having grievances with the card type, but the card type doesn't make the unit bad. The systems might, not allow a unit to perform as highly as others, but it doesn't make the unit bad. It just means they're not performing as highly. Like, a little bit, this is that sort of if you're not first, you're last mentality that I see a lot in the community. And I think it's dumb. I don't really think it has a place. Because it's not like there's PvP in this game. It's not like there's like massive dick measuring contests that have rewards where like, oh, yeah, mine does 9 million. Well, mine does 10, and the guy that does 10 million gets extra crap, like in some, PvP-esque games. There's really nothing to be said. As long as your unit clears the node, you don't really care. So I don't really understand why people do that, but people do that. The Vegas is the QP node? I think it is. Yep. Boo. Now this is gonna be difficult because I'm gonna need to find a QP CE on a Korean Chihuahua. Chihuahua? course, Vegas has the QP. Yep. That would almost work. Astral got me. Thank you, Ash. Where is it? There it is, my rising mud rain. Low key, I could use my salter for this. I actually don't need to be bonding my salter anymore in the back line. Oh man, I'm so close. I'm so close to getting away with that. Wait, is this QP? It is. Holy crap. This is already the old QP comp that I was running. We're gonna get Chach out of 5. Really? Yeah, so it's gotta be MASH. No, doesn't matter. Yep. Sorry, I had to think there for a second about the comp. We'll try for money. Seems appropriate. Do you think we're going into the lotto early in the year, kind of like what's about to happen on an A? Wait, do I think we're gonna get a lotto early? I mean, like Christmas should be what's next on an A. I don't think it's gonna happen this week, but we'll see. I don't think any of that's early though. Like we've had early lottos that happened like, like mid-November and stuff like that, but I don't think this is what I would consider to be an early year. You can filter for QB? Yeah, it just requires me to understand the filter. Speaking of this, I've seen some the new men are meh takes and not worth rolling. My counter has been that they function the same way as those that wanted them to. I mean, I'm gonna try to make the case for them tonight. I don't think they're like the craziest thing ever. I don't think there's anyone here that's like, oh my god, it's game breaking, right? But that is how a lot of the community acts. They basically are veterans that have a shit ton of units, and they just anything that is not game breaking, they go it's meh. I think doubly so when it's men. You're going to see a lot of people that are disinterested because it is and originally started out as a waifu collector game. So it's like I kind of understand, but it's just one of those scenarios where it's like it's better to say nothing at all rather than be like, it's meh. Don't you plan to bond 10 all saber faces? Like low key, I've been working towards that, but it's not like a hard set goal. The big reason I've even been thinking about it more of late is because of the dev comments. Kay, could you give me some advice on how to properly prepare for Ordeal Call 2 years from now? Ordeal Call or class score? Because those are technically two different things. One problem is that Jerker's free. Yes and no, right? Like, I think Jerker does interesting stuff. Jerker has her own quirks and issues, so it is what it is. Fast cover the trees that need a lot of monuments and idols. I mean, get all of our units ascended now. That way you don't have to worry about them later. Like I've talked about before, try to get statues and monuments where you're able to. So if you roll in an event and you have increased efficiency from having the CEs, that's a good time to make sure you buy out all the statues and monuments in that event. We rolling today? No, I'm probably not rolling. How to prepare for a deal call, keep up with the game. Yeah, pretty much. Not playing is the only way to like screw yourself. Okay. You doing Tunguska Saberface only? Oh, that's a good question that I hadn't really considered. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I hadn't even thought about that because like part of me doesn't actually consider Tunguska story. Like it has story elements, but like the raids are raids, so I don't know. I'll have to sit down and actually like think about, is it even possible to be done, or is it like a relatively unfair challenge? Assuming it could be, then yeah, I would try, at least for you guys. But I think the thing would be like I would clear it as a saber face only type thing, and then like go back and just clear it normal, right? Like I wouldn't force myself to farm saber face only. Are you doing the JP raids? Yeah, so there's a JP raid that's going to be coming out on the 2nd. Those of you guys that hadn't heard that, I did talk about it in the announcements, in the tweets that I put out, so make sure you go check those out if you haven't already. I kind of just detailed a little bit of a TLDR on what the event is. But yeah, we're supposed to get raids. That means JP is going to go raid probably into Lotto versus NA, which will go Lotto into raid, which I find hilarious. Pulling for love is the way. Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, Chad, if you like the Guda units, if you're hyped for who the characters are, roll, right? Like, at the end of the day, your account should be good enough that you can roll for whoever you want. If your account is not at that point, you certainly have people you need to go after, but then don't lament not rolling here because you'll eventually get another opportunity to roll. That's usually what I tell people. It's like, work on your account first, get it to a point of self-sustainability, get it to a point where most of your needs are met. And then from there, if you want to like do more stuff, you can, and you don't have to worry about it. Or again, you can just coast and idle from there. It's just totally up to you. But most people start trying to get units at that point that they actually desire. So I don't know if I'm going to kill. We'll have to see here, because I do have Mud Rain, but this is non-buster buff. So 278, so I didn't clear. I get even one crit. Okay, there we go. That's spicy. I'll just have to take matters into my own hands for that wave. But I think that's why I was using cranking, is because the issue with trying to do Saber as a, like, Black Grail type of comp, and I know I'm not using Black Grail, but I'm using Mud Rain, is that essentially everything Saber has on a 5-turn cooldown. This sort of incentivizes you to pop some stuff like turn 1, because you basically end up needing to use one of Coin Sky's charge skills turn 1. So the only way you're getting back to it then is by actually getting both of them. The only problem then is that you end up with it too early, so you end up having to pop her stuff on turn 1. You could also pop it turn 2, but because she doesn't have multi-turn duration on her buffs, you instead need to punt to turn 3. So you have a wave 2 issue where if there's too high of a health of an enemy on wave 2, you can end up in a weird spot. And this node does have a 333k enemy on wave 2 because it's just a dick of a node. So that is somewhat of an issue. Even my 120 grailed OG Saber can't really handle it, and that's kind of the issue that you run into. Ironically enough, if I just run cranking, she handles it just fine. So it's just a weird sort of setup. Rolling on the first go around isn't exactly strictly necessary. Yeah, and usually you can wait and just kind of bide your time. So going strong for Archetype Earth, go for it. Arceus in a weird spot. They could just be putting her on a New Year banner rotation, I suppose. I assume they're eventually going to do something with Arcubid. I did see, like, based off the thing that Phoenix posted, that Nasu said, like, oh, well, Christmas this year isn't Tsukihime, and I'm like, I get that, but the very fact that Nasu keeps bringing up Tsukihime despite no one asking means that he's well aware, and it will eventually, like, FGO will eventually have something that's Tsukihime related. There's just no way, right? Like, there's no way he's going to keep bringing it up only to then not do it. Okay. Refresh. Nobody got it. Still Red Gardener full context. I mean, I don't blame him for that, but I think the issue at play here at this point is, like, we just still don't have a release date for that stuff. So it's like a little bit, I know they're like, oh, please be patient with us, but they do need to provide some kind of update at some point, right? So, for instance, this is the problem, right? Like, I don't have to pop it this turn, but if I don't pop it this turn and then I use one of the 50% charges and then try to pop it on, like, say, turn 2, I'm not getting back to it again. So it's better to use it rather than lose it, but then you have the issue of what to do about the next wave. Hilariously, one of the potential solutions would just be to play for a possible turn 4 and to basically just not use my Buster buffs, because my variant of Saber here is so strong that it's going to clear this wave regardless. Can't you still use the can't you still use it turn 2 and the Oberon buff should be enough for turn 3? Probably. I'd have to double check the math on it. Usually turn 3 is very hard for me to estimate based off of Oberon, like, just doubling shit. The reality is simply that, like, if you have enough crit stars, it usually works out in your favor. The problem that I have right here, and the better solution, is probably just to do that right there like that, and to basically just give myself even more. So essentially, I just use my Mystic Code instead. Yeah, see, this is just a shit draw where the only person that gets 100% is the Korean Sky. I kept wanting to call her Kiyohime. News would be nice, though. Yeah, I think that's just a general premise, is like they absolutely need to be, like, saying more about their projects. It's wild because we really haven't had a Type Moon Times in a while. And they really kind of need to actually, like, give us some dates and some project updates. And then I think that would, you know, benefit everybody. Hilariously enough, I can't actually kill this final wave with just cards, but I still need the right cards in order to make it work. But yeah, you can see. So that did about 721. Would it kill just with the Oberon buff? No. If I backed out the mana burst, I would still need cards on one of the 2 waves. And like I said, it's just hilariously only an issue because of the craft essence being used here. If I had an MLB of the craft essence, that would also make the difference. I would also not have to do it. Like, I'll show you guys right here. I'll literally just back out and flip flop to cranking, and you'll see the difference. But it is rather funny to me. There you go. King got me. What's up, Hera? How's it going? Yeah, it's just a weird interaction between cooldowns and charge capability of craft essences here that's making all the difference. And it's why sometimes having more charge doesn't necessarily lead to more damage. Usually it does, but sometimes it doesn't. So now, because of this, I can punt this because I haven't had to use one of the Koyanskaya charges. So I can use this on turns 2 and 3, and that's just going to free me up to using it at more applicable times. That extra remake just vibing in the void. Yeah, like I said, I have no idea what the hell they're doing, and all we hear on that is like, well, we're working on it still, and it's like, like you just kind of have to take them at their word. But I definitely think there's a point where it's like, hey, look, I know what you're saying, but you're not actually doing it, and that's kind of the problem. So interestingly enough, I can still get away with using Oberon's for skill here as well. But it really shouldn't matter. She should just clear it outright thanks to having the Buster buff this turn. Cad, you are not rolling FP right. I know you were burnt out on doing it. No. I want to be clear here. The reason I'm burnt out on doing it is because I'm doing it. I'm burnt out from doing it on Japan. I have been rolling out my FP on JP. I did end up getting an extra copy of the CE today. I didn't roll out too much, but I have been doing it on the side because I want my Grail casting done. So the second we tip over to December 1st there, chat, I want to just be able to socket in all my coins, print my 2 Grails, and then Audi 500 until we're like, you know, in January. I don't want to have to think about it because we're going to have to do so much farming here over the next month. In the December Grail casting, yeah. I want to Grail cast more and get my C experience. Yeah, I mean, now's a great time to actually roll your FP. Like it just in general is. Hello, Spartan. How's it going? But yeah, you guys can see here, this is a pretty lucrative node for QP. You pretty much on average get more than 4 mil, and it ends up working out quite a bit for you. So like, even just doing your 3 a day, chat, you'll get roughly somewhere in the realm of about like 15 million QP a day. And you start thinking about that, it's like, well, that's not that much, but it's also not that little because you have to do at least 3 runs a day. So it does begin to quickly accumulate, and you just spend the rest of your AP on other stuff. There's Nobu coins in the Guda FP rolls, right? Yeah. And the thing that makes Nobu coins so good, chat, is you get 15 coins for Nobu, who is otherwise a... Chat, is he a 1-star or a 2-star? I don't remember. I think he's a 1-star. But 1-stars are only supposed to get 2 coins. So you're getting way more coins for each copy of Nobukatsu than you should be. You should only be getting 2. So that's part of the reason that he's so nice. He's also on Raid Up, which is a rarity within an FP pool. Normally your FP pool does not have Raid Ups. So the fact that he's actually on Raid Up in the pool means you get him more often and he's worth more coins. So you just get a crap ton of coins. Don't be mistaken though, chat. Like when you look towards the actual FP banner here, like yeah, they're featured here prominently, but they are not on Raid Up. Only this man is. So it's like they tried to make it seem like they are available, but they're not on Raid Up. Nor is the Craft Essence on Raid Up. 7 times more coins, pretty much. Super Bunny event. Yeah, and I don't know when they're gonna rerun Mary Anning at that point. That's gonna be another interesting one to see. Quality art for that new 3-star C? Oh yeah, it's fantastic. Oh right, because it's not half cost right now. Fuck. So I was sitting there thinking that I was gonna have some AP left over to actually do the event. But yeah, I forgot that the half cost of that stuff ended, so it's even less efficient now. But yeah, I'm currently up to date. I'm waiting on time lock, I think, or maybe not. I apparently have to get... No, that says 11:30, so I think we're still stuck. But I have to get to 60,000 points. I'm currently at 40,000. That should happen, you know, tomorrow at some point. And if it doesn't, like, I should still be fine. I just need to basically get to a point, chat. You can't see it, but I was trying to show you guys my date down there. But essentially, like, today is the 29th, right? Like, so we know the raids are coming out on 12/2. So I have basically 3 days to catch up from anything that I get behind on. I'll end up popping a, apple if I have to. Time for another Bundian event. Ugh. I don't think you'll necessarily see another Bundian event. I think we'll just throw in raid up in the background of something else. And also, if I didn't say it, Quidge, thank you for the resub. Wonder what mats we'll get with these raids. I expect you're gonna see 90 plus, and 90 plus variants, which I think this is our first 90 plus raid, chat. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Because I don't think we actually had anything. Sora Roxas, thank you for the prime. Appreciate it. Chat, can we get some love for our newest sub? Also, chat, I did get distracted. I did start uploading some of the Christmas emotes. I think they're only available to, like, some of the higher tier subs right now, because I just started at, like, the top of the list and started trying to go down. I got, like, not even a quarter of the way through it, though, so I'll try to do that tomorrow if I remember. Tunguska is a 90 plus. Okay. Well, that'll be interesting to see then. I wonder if that's the way it's gonna work again. But that'll be very intriguing. Yeah, there you go. Chat's seeing some of them. My favorite Christmas emote once they all get uploaded, chat, is Cad Cry. Because it's in an ice block. It's great. Are they rerunning the Olga quest? No, I don't think so. I think so. I didn't put this in the news bulletin, but the way I understand it is there is a way now, chat, that if you see something go wrong in the middle of the Olga quest, because it is 10 waves and you had to have them all set up ahead of time, there is now apparently a button that you can press that will send you all the way back to wave 1 without making you go all the way back out and start over again. So it's sort of like a faster reset. But it's unique to the Olga quest as far as I know. I just spent a week doing it last week. What the fuck? Yeah. I did it. Chat, didn't I clear it the first attempt? much to people's aggravation, I remember. People are like, that's not gonna work. I can't wait to see him go up against that one. And I did it first try. It was easy. Yeah. I think if you had a very veteran account, and you spent the time to study the fight a little bit ahead of time, it wasn't too bad, but I know a lot of people don't want to have to think too much. I know a lot of people don't have enough options with their account. So I totally understand how that fight caused people problems. Still kind of new to FGO. I was looking at the upcoming events for the next year, and I saw there were 2 interludes they were adding. One, it looked like there's supposed to be story in between the Lost Belt. And 4 of the other ones, I believe, was the Nemo event. How exactly are those handled? Story between Lost Belt 3 and 4? For interludes? Or wait, are you talking like main interludes? So like the Oku event and yeah, like Void Space, so Imaginary Scramble? Yeah, okay. So those are done by virtue of, like, basically, let me see if I can show it to you here real quick. So, like, you'll end up having a new section down at the bottom that looks like this. So this is Epic of Remnant up here. This is 1.5. This is 1. And then these are main interludes. And if you go in here, you can actually see, like, I probably still have some lingering because some of them don't go away. I'm not really sure why. But this is where some of the stuff comes back. So like I have Tunguska's epilogue in here. I have 6.5 because it never leaves because it has free quest. Here is Imaginary Scramble. So like some of these you'll end up having to unlock using rare prisms. They eventually do away with the cost of those. And then others are just actually like story chapters that they tried to throw in the main interlude section because the devs are just not quite sure what a main interlude is themselves. They use that term really weirdly from time to time. The way I've taken to likening it is main interludes are 0.5 events, whether or not they are an event or a story chapter. But definitely can get confusing, especially when there is the term of like story interludes that are used, which are found up here in Chaldea Gate. It's this section right here that you see basically where my mouse is. That like you come in here and you see like these are story interludes. They usually are story like side stuff, side content for each character. Sometimes they have upgrades, sometimes they don't. But you got to be careful because some people get really confused by that, myself included. When you asked, I wasn't quite sure. So, and it's fine. I could figure out usually what the player means when they ask questions like that, but some people just like think you're talking about the other thing. Talking about Trom. Yeah, Trom is 6.5. So naturally to like be able to do Trom, you have to have the prior chapters done. And that's usually what'll be the case for each of the like main interludes that you have to unlock. There will be a requirement that you have to have done, and it's usually just story completion. The Christmas one didn't feel important enough to be a 0.5. Yes, I've had people argue with me over that because they just are Ereshkigal simps. Chat, I have read the entire story to the original Christmas event that became a main interlude. It did not need to be a main interlude. It's not story significant no matter what people say. It's not that it's like insignificant. It's just it's not something that like the player has to know compared to like say CCC, right? Like to me, CCC absolutely unequivocally always should have been the very first main interlude that the game ever had. I don't know why they started with Ereshkigal, other than when Ereshkigal came out, it was in the middle of the Babylonia anime campaigns. They hadn't run a banner for Eresh. When the main interlude for it came out, not the actual event. And they clearly tried to work that in as part of the campaign. Do they cost rare prisms when they run the campaign? Usually, if you do them in the moment, they are free. Usually. But the problem is that only usually lasts for like a week or two. Yeah, see, I know Trubs disagrees with me on this. Trubs, we would have to really talk about it because I don't think it matters. But it is what it is, right? Like, I just think that the devs don't really have a handle themselves on what they want main interludes to be is usually the problem with it. And that's why there's such confusion. Now that we know that Nasu wrote the Christmas event, do you think it'll be LB6 themed? I'm gonna be real with you, and I'm gonna say for FGO's sake, I hope that it's not. Like, I don't think anyone wants a mean-spirited Christmas, but you would start to see some people really bitch. Because people already bitched about summer because of that. So, like, I don't think it's good for the game if they keep milking it. I'm tired of LB6, yeah. A little bit, this is going to be the problem, chat. It's like, kind of like with the Star Wars sequels, why can't Star Wars move on from like, you know, murder, death, kill, planet-like objects that are basically Death Star 2.0? It's the same problem with FGO, where it's gonna be like, why can't FGO move on from like functionally like the fairy Britain, right? Wants to bet either Habitrot or Morgan Summer. I'm gonna be real with you. If if you got a Christmas event that was LB6 themed and the Santa wasn't Habitrot, I have issues. I have major issues. That is such an easy Santa. Why can't MCU move on from Iron Man? Hot take. Because Iron Man was the only good MCU movie. Anyways. And Habitrot is W, yes. That's a cold take. The Guardians. That's true. Okay, you know, that's I did forget. I did like the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Second Guardians of the Galaxy was okay. I haven't seen the third one because I haven't heard good things about the third one. I am personally holding off on Guda banner until at least Mellison banner ends. I mean, I don't blame you if you're trying to get Mel, right? Like, it is what it is. Chat, we've got a lot of stuff to go over, and I absolutely did not fill up my water, so let me be right back. We're going to be going over the new units here in a minute. Let me quickly fill up on water, so I will burb and leave you guys to your own devices. Okay, back. Sorry about that. Also went to the bathroom real quick. For the raids, do you need Lost Belt 7 or Deal Call? I actually don't know. I don't know if they've said anything on that. But yeah, chat, like, Iron Man is my favorite. You know, I was thinking about that as I was walking around. I'm like, I probably shouldn't have said that like it's the only good one. It's not. There are other good Marvel movies. It's just, to me, Iron Man stands a cut above just about all of the others. And while there are others I like, the vast majority of Marvel movies to me have just been like passably watchable. Where like I didn't really enjoy them too much, but I didn't hate them either. I love Deadpool. The original Deadpool is funny. I haven't seen Deadpool 2 or 3, so And like, I want to be clear here, Chad. I'm not like the biggest superhero fan or anything ever. Like, I don't hate them. I did obviously grow up on some of the stories, but like, I'm not someone that like goes crazy about it as some people do, right? Like, I don't consider myself like a Marvel super fan or anything like that. Iron Man was so good that I think it made the whole thing work so much more. Probably, right? There will be Deadpool 3. Fantastic. Okay. Just closing tabs, shit. Robert Downey Jr. did carry a lot. Yeah, I think his portrayal of Iron Man was very like well thought out. It was like a more modern day James Bond with a little bit more emotion and sensibility, which I think worked, right? Like it was not just a complete total chauvinist pig that like all the feminists would have gotten completely immediately angry at. I was good with ending it in Endgame, like 10 years is enough. I never watched Infinity War or Endgame. Like that's the other reason that like people would call me out, right? And it's mostly because like when they were first coming out, I hadn't seen a couple of the movies that led up to it, and I knew that there was interconnectivity, so I felt a little bit lost. And then people were saying like great things about it, and then the script leaked, and I like read a little bit of that, and then I kept reading, and then I ended up reading the entire thing because I was just like, there's just no way it's this bad. So the problem that I had, and obviously like watching certain things is better, but sometimes when you read things in script form, you realize just how stupid certain concepts are. Where it's like, if you're sitting there thinking about like reading it in a book, you're like, man, that was dumb. Why the hell did they do that? Right? Like, whereas when you see it on the movie screen, you see it all in action, it's happening in the heat of the moment, it makes a little bit more sense or it flows a little bit better. But like, there's some stuff that when you read it, you just go like, man, that was terrible. Why did they do that? Sec1, thank you for the prime. Thank you for the 2 months. Hope you're doing good. Endgame was kind of okay. Yeah. So wild that they made Iron Man without a real script. Yeah. But I feel very disconnected from Marvel nowadays. I think that's what happens when you break the cycle and you don't watch some of the movies, right? Ronnie, thank you for continuing the gift sub. It's not going to give you a notification for that, but I see it and I appreciate it. Yeah, can we get some more love? And thank you guys. Again, we're going to be going over the new units here. At least to the extent that fandom has it. Let me see, because like you can see, it's not necessarily updated on here, but I'm going to assume that they're in. Or are they? And they're not listing them over here on the side. So what do we got? We got a new writer, right? Okay, so we got Shingen. We got Shimpachi. Bet they don't have the welfare. Ooh, they at least have something. So let me double check here real quick. Okay, so it looks like we got everything on Shingen. Everything on Shimpachi. I think this one makes sense since we don't have it, and unless it's been data mined, you won't know it. That one's there. That one's there. So we do have it on everybody except that. Let me double check. I don't think it's up here under servants yet, so let me... Thank you, Avalon. Okay. Is that under passes? I don't remember. I don't remember where they store the stuff on this. Yeah, they don't have a lot of it, so it doesn't look like it's actually been data mined yet. The welfare ID is $3.99. Yep. Yeah, I know. We're literally sitting on 400 units, which, like, low key chat, I feel like they should prioritize like celebrating such a milestone. Because I'm gonna be real with you, I'm gonna say like not a lot of gacha games ever reach that point. Like that is a little bit of a point of pride of like, hey, look what we did. Look how long we've been doing this, and we're still going. And I think FGO needs to embrace its age at this point and be like, yeah, we're still here. We're still pumping shit out, right? Like that's really what they need to do. But yeah, so I guess we do not know the third append yet. Debating then if we want to actually go over the welfare yet. That may be a better punt until another day, but third append is unknown for the welfare. Yeah, and it like it could matter to an extent, right? So we'll just have to wait and see. But I may do like an unofficial brief TLDR on the new unit there. FEH celebrated 1,000. Yeah, so like that's wild in and of itself. I hear all the time about the power creep in Fire Emblem Heroes. I don't know if that has to do with like just the sheer rate at which they pump units out, or if it just has to do with the fact that like they keep adjusting units to just be insane, right? Like, because I guess in theory, like the number of units that you bring to something, so like especially in a Fire Emblem game, right? Like I don't know how the mobile game for that plays. Like, is it an actual battlefield like in other Fire Emblem games, where like you have like way more than like 4 or 5 units on the field at once? It is okay. So like, yeah, if that's the case, 1,000 units, I kind of actually understand that. I'm not gonna say that I want to roll in such a gacha game, but I kind of understand that. Like, it makes a lot more sense than FGO, where it's a 3-man lineup, right? Like, I feel like balancing could be held for that. I do too. Why is he so far away? Why is who so far away? Am I sitting far away, chat? I'm just cold. I'm just cold. That's all it is. Oh, you mean Shingen? Yeah, he's kind of like distant in his thing. I feel like this could have been zoomed in by a good 20%. But like you kind of see why, okay, chat? Like Shingen just be getting comfy here. Like to give you guys an idea about like what's going on, right? Like low key, here it goes. Like he's here. He's got like a little fur coat. And then he's like, hold on, I'm going full blown Naruto up in this shit. I got like my padded armor and my like MC Hammer pants here. I got my like ninja headband. And then he's like, boom. Now what if I just became like actual Fuzzy? And he's like, I still have all the shit I have before, but I have it even more. He adds layers. Yeah, he be thick. He be a thick boy. He embodies what it means to be a warlord. No, he embodies thickness. Are you down with the thickness? But I find that really funny that it's like, boom. I like low key chat. Hold on. Yes, I have to use this third form. Like, holy hell, this third form is amazing. So it's great too because what it really reminds me of is it reminds me of the ogres that you encounter in game, like straight up. And I 100% think that is the aesthetic they were going for with him. Bro is a Tekken character in Form 1? Yeah. Historically accurate Takeda out of nowhere. Uh-huh. He looks like he has Karna's pose. Maybe. I don't know. Who is his artist? Toy 8. Oh. Oh, it's his first male. Interesting. Interesting. Well, consort you simps. Unfortunate for you. You have to roll for a man now. The game sprite, yeah. He looks sad his mom dressed him too warm, yes. Yeah, it looks like one of those guys that's like triple and quadruple layered, like in all of their like bundling up for the cold. Joke's on you, gender is irrelevant. Joke's on you, the wiki begs to differ. You should see his faces. I can go and see them. How do I want to handle this? Let's see. So Shingen's got functionally 5-turn cooldown. Dad, is he our first non-saber face? Unit with 50% charge that's on a 5-turn cooldown. Welcome to Black Rail Looping, chat. Because this 30% can be given to him by virtue of Burrow. Like, easily. Because you could have it happen, like, this turn instead. At least I think. How would I do that? It's it here. Yo, he's kind of weird. Because you can't get the Oberon back in on this turn. It makes my head hurt. Yeah. Like Adventure for Kuro? Yeah, I think that's what you gotta do. Well, you have to use Oberon's 50 here. It's gonna drain, but you don't care. Kuro rotates out. That brings bitch in. Yeah, that works. Yeah, you could Black Grail with him. I think the vast majority of people are still gonna just want to start with 50%. Yeah, that's definitely a little bit spicier. Third form has super large trait? I don't think so. Hold on, traits. Nope. Nothing extra there. I gave up on the Kuro life. I don't blame you. I like, and this is what I tried to tell people from the outset, right? I had already, like, day one that Kuro came out, looked into Kuro enough to know that Kuro was going to be an interesting thing, but not something you're going to want to do every time. The same could be said, like this is honest to God, chat. This is the best, like, analogy, example rather, that I can give you of what Kuro means for those of you on an A. Kuro is like, what if you had the capability of running Qingong comps all the time and they did more damage? You could do that. You just wouldn't do that because it takes so damn long. It's so much tediousness and extra buttons that you're sitting there doing. Nobody wants to have to run a full-fledged Qingong comp all the time. They don't mind it for the meme, but usually that's where it ends up, is people just go like, man, this just takes fucking forever. And they don't want to have to do it. The same concept at play with Kuro. Kuro can enable some stuff that wasn't possible before, but you just almost don't want to have to run Kuro if you don't have to. So, yes, we can get him to Black Grail loop. Is it worth it? I think that really very much depends. Because the problem with this is, chat, you're already dealing with 1 5-star. You're going to have double Koyenskaya and 1 Oberon plus 1 Kuro as well. Okay? So you naturally now have basically 4 5-stars and 1 4-star. This guarantees your extra unit there to be MASH, because you have to have 0 cost. And good luck running enough craft essences to make this work. Usually it's not worth the cost. Having all that, you probably have easier options too, probably. Yeah. So a lot of your 5-stars can be made to make that happen. The thing I was just exploring there is because he has the cooldown reduction, is like, what did that mean really for his 50% charge? Because we can get it down to 5 turns. Most other people don't have this on a 5-turn cooldown. There are some rules to the buster system that state that if you can get certain things to certain cooldowns, you can double dip and or be able to open up the possibility of a different setup. I don't know that that's going to have a huge impact for him. I think this will actually be really good in terms of like challenge content, but I don't think it's necessarily going to like help that much, because the reality for what this sort of thing is good for is being able to double stack the steroids faster, not necessarily the charge. We don't really care too much about being able to get to the charge faster. It's the fact that we can and do want to get to our steroids even quicker. But Chad, I will say this. If Takeda Shingen wasn't a buster unit, I would have eaten my hat. To me, he absolutely had to. There's the Kuro numbers. Oh, Jesus. As always, wave 3. Okay. Yep. Oh, that's interesting. Shingen scales better than Drake. Now, don't take what I just said and get the wrong idea, chat. Because what I said is correct, but it doesn't mean he deals more damage than Drake. Oh, that's wild. I actually didn't realize those two were so close. Okay. Buster Riders are real awkward at low MP levels. You need supports to card. No, not really. Not if you have people like Oberon in the comp. I think the only problem that you would find is a 90 plus plus content, and I'm gonna say, to be honest with you, if you have it in P1, you probably shouldn't be doing 90 plus plus content. Not unless it's just a node that is like custom tailored to them. Okay, let's start some of my options here. He's calling it Holy Night Supper, which is the NA variant. It's wild that some Cs I know their name from JP because that's where I encountered them first, whereas others I know them from NA because that's where I encountered them first. Oh, chat. What's the Mama Raiko see? What's the name of that sucker? The 50% buster. Something knitting? Yeah. No? Sewing? Stitching for your beloved one. Yep. There we go. had to remember that. I am gonna have a brief aside about this, but obviously not focus on it too much. I'm not gonna do too much in the way of that. And let me pull this up. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's start off with Shingen, chat. Actually, let me briefly refresh my memory here. Yep. Yep. Now I realize Avalon's probably where you got the tricolor buff from. Okay. Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today I'm going to be talking to you about our newest writer on JP, Takeda Shingen. So Takeda Shingen is a very infamous and famous type of character from the Warring States period of Japan. He's coming to us in our newest Guda event, Guda 8, which will be a raid event as well as a ladder event. Should be a fairly straightforward event otherwise, but again, there's been some recent hubbub about this new unit. And with regards to that, I've definitely seen people talking about, his middling performance. They think that he's not that good. Or maybe they just sort of are obsessed with other characters and, have an axe to grind. I think that's usually the case in most of these cases. Because I, don't really see anything wrong with Shingen. I think his damage performance is actually pretty good. And in a world in which the devs have said that they pretty much don't want to start giving us Bond 20 yet, I think it makes sense that they're trying to come up with some other units that maybe could act as analogs to other older units that exist. And in Takeda Shingen's case, that's going to be a unit like, say, Francis Drake. So we're going to talk about that, as well as some of the comparisons to other units, and as to how I think Shingen performs, because I don't think he's a bad unit by any means. So, just talking about it again, he is a limited unit. You're only going to be able to get him during the Guda event that is currently on. Obviously, he will probably get other banners into the future, but just understand that is always the deal with limited units. Unless you roll the actual banner that they're on raid up, don't expect to get them otherwise. You may be able to, snipe them off of a GSSR or something like that later on down the line, but obviously, availability will be limited. So, with regards to his actual stats and what he is, Takeda Shingen is, as you guys can see, a 5-star AoE Buster Rider, hence the reason for the comparison to Drake. And as a result, we start out here at the beginning by staring at his attack stat. You can see here he's got about 11k attack, 11.1 to be a little bit more precise, almost 11.2. This is not very high, especially not for a 5-star. Certainly we've seen people that, have 10k attack as a 5-star. That's rather on the low end of them. He's not quite there, but he is down there. I do think that would be a potential concern, but the proof is not, really in the pudding here, as again, he's going to end up having his entire kit that really is the factor that you need to pay attention to. So it's not just the attack stat. A high attack stat is always a good thing. A low attack stat is not necessarily a bad thing. It really just depends on how the unit is structured. He does end up having 13.7k HP, so he doesn't really get a whole ton of HP to help offset this, but I think there's a reason why, and you will see that in his kit. I don't think this is a super big concern. I do think that he could have maybe had a little bit more, but it is what it is. His attribute is going to be mana attribute. He does have slightly less than average star absorption for a Rider, but that's not a huge concern because Riders already have some of the highest star absorption in the game. So we don't really have to care too much about him soaking stars. He will soak them nonetheless. His star generation here is also a tad bit low. Again, it's only at 8.9, but it is what it is, and it's nothing too much to be concerned about. He does only have a 0.57 NP charge attack. This maybe could be a little bit higher, but I think you'll see why, and that comes in his kit, not necessarily from his deck of cards, which you can sneak peek there down below. He does have a 3% NP charge defense. This is pretty much right average. We don't really see anyone less than this, but we certainly see a couple people that do have more. It's just as the amount that he's going to get whenever he is hit by an attack. And again, it's per hit of the attack that he will get this number. His death rate here is 38.7%. This is pretty high, so keep him away from anyone that's going to death proc him, but usually those are assassins, so you're probably not going to be running him against them anyways. His alignment is lawful evil, which is a fairly interesting one. Keep in mind, this doesn't necessarily mean that Shingen's evil. It's just what the servant thinks of themselves. But this does mean that he has synergy with other units that can buff evil characters like, say, Doman, or again, maybe someone like, say, Moriarty, who likes to change people to evil. He won't necessarily need anything like that in order to be able to dabble with him. But you can see he is male-gendered. His traits are Genji, so we get yet another Genji unit that you might be able to exploit with someone like Tyra. Hominid servant, humanoid, riding, servant, 7 Knight servant, and weak to enema elish. So not too many traits to really write home about, but certainly something there that you could potentially exploit. He does have a triple buster deck, which turns him into a little bit of a gorilla, as we like to call him. People that end up just having the majority of their deck being buster. They're very Unga Boonga-y. They like to just spam red cards and kind of go. His hit counts are actually all above average at 4 hits, the only exception being the extra attack down here at 5, which is just average, so there's nothing too bad about that. So having above average hits will help smooth out the things like the star generation as well as the NP charge, as this is just going to make the cards sort of help that out. He only has the singular arts and quick cards, so you will still be able to form mighty chains, but it won't be as easy to really NP gain with him with his cards. The good news is, if you are running him, as you probably should be, alongside a Koyanskaya, you can at least get more charge from using those buster cards with her second buff, so it's probably not too huge of a concern, especially since he does have other things to help out with that. Coming down here to his skills, you can see the first part of his kit here is a party-wide charisma of 20%. That in and of itself is strong, but it also has the additional effect of being targetable to reduce one ally's skill cooldowns by 1. Now, you could throw this on other people if you wanted to make a hybrid style comp where he's just one of the damage dealers, but ultimately at the end of the day, I think you're probably going to end up using this on himself quite a bit. Now, Takeda Shingen ends up having 6 turn cooldowns on just about all of his skills, so having the ability to reduce that yet another turn means he ends up having 5 turn cooldowns. And that can actually be really nice, as we've talked about this in the Koyanskaya systems, that this allows skills to be popped on back-to-back turns. So that means you can pop a skill on turn 1 and get it back using Koyanskaya's cooldowns, as well as his own, to basically be able to do this again on turn 2. You might also be able to do it on turn 2 initially and then get it back in time for turn 3. It just depends on how you set things up, and it is a really nice thing to have. Usually lower cooldowns are almost always better. So definitely a nice little feather in his cap, and yet another unit that does cooldown reduction. So this also alleviates potentially the need to have other units besides Koyenskaya that might do things like this. Taking a look at his second skill here, he increases his own Buster performance for 3 turns. This is going to be nice, as again, it's all on the 6-turn cooldown, so if you reduce this to 5 turns, this means you're popping this skill yet again on turns 1 and 2, so you're getting to stack this up faster, allowing you to deal more damage on subsequent turns, basically kind of reaching your peak there already by turn 2, so not too bad. You're going to be able to charge your own NP gauge as well here, though, by 50%. This is an interesting one because it's a little bit odd because it kind of indicates that you might want to use this on turn 1 in and of itself. Now, I'm not the hugest fan of pairing steroids with charge skills because it makes you have to make choices sometimes as to like when you use them. Usually this is going to want to make you force out the steroid immediately on turn 1. That's, I guess, fine, but it is at least somewhat of a concern as you may have been able to manipulate this better had it not been. But at the end of the day, it's still good. He'll still be able to utilize this, so it's not a huge concern. And then on top of that, he will gain 20 crit stars, just giving him an extra nice bomb here. I've actually talked about this with some of our more recent Buster units. We're reaching this sort of monopoly money type issue with the Buster system, whereas like everybody has crit stars now, so crit stars don't really matter that much. You could have given him 30 here and it really wouldn't have made that big of a difference, because usually you're supported by some of the best supports in the game that also have star bombs in their kit. So both Oberon and Koyenskaya end up having it, thus him having even more certainly doesn't hurt, but it's not really going to make that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things, especially if you just needed to manipulate it in some way to get the crit stars to come out on a certain turn. You usually can be able to do that due to the malleability of the Buster comps. But at the end of the day, still better to have it than not. So definitely a nice thing to just have a star bomb there on a low cooldown. And his third skill here is his hard survivability. This is going to grant him invincibility for 3 attacks, 3 turns. So this is why I say, again, I think looking at the HP stat, it's not too huge of a concern. He's going to have that hard survival to be able to like outlast things. The other things you're going to watch out for are things that are maybe going to repeatedly hit him and chip away at these stacks really fast. Anything with invuln pierce, anything with buff removal, those are going to be the things you're going to want to watch out for, because this isn't solemn defense. Things can go through invuln, sadly, but as long as you're careful with that, you should be okay. Then to top that off, he also ends up with a damage cut here of 500. This is not the most robust damage cut, but it's not limited. It is 3 turns, any amount of attacks within 3 turns. So you will get some decent value out of that if he does keep getting hit, but otherwise it's not a terribly strong damage cut. From there, he's also going to increase his own NP generation rate for 3 turns by 30%. So this is going to end up helping out his 0.57 even further. So having that, having the 50% charge here, this is why I say I really don't think this is going to be too big of a concern, because he has stuff in his kit to be able to deal with this. So naturally, having additional NP gain, just going to be a nice little extra feather in his cap should he need to try to card. And I do think that could be a concern if you maybe don't have your cooldowns active and you're trying to go the distance with him in more of a challenge scenario, because those triple Buster cards can obviously result in some bad sort of setups where you maybe can't get the charge that you want. But again, all of that also on a 6-turn cooldown, so you'd be able to reduce it and double up on it should you need. His passive skills here, he does get Writing A. This is going to help out that quick card performance a little bit, even though he only has the 1. He's going to get Magic Resistance D here for some additional debuff resistance, just making him obviously harder to land any sort of negative effect on him. And then Territory Creation Takeda, a unique variant of Territory Creation here. That's going to still give him Arts up to help his singular Arts cards performance, but it also increases his own critical attack chance resistance by 10%. Just making him ever so slightly harder to crit against. So definitely not too terrible. This will just make him a little bit tankier, a little bit more survivable. Now, here we get to the append skills. I'm just kind of starting off right here with the third one. The third one is anti-ruler attack damage aptitude. Takeda doesn't really have anything special to help him out in this sort of scenario. Probably not your best use of a third append. I'm going to say this one is a very distant third in both, considering both the other appends and how they could matter to him. That being said, he's in a little bit of a weird spot because his second append, mana loading, is usually our go-to recommendation. In Takeda's case, he is a 50% charger. You probably don't care too much to actually have this. Normally, it might matter, especially the example that I can give you where this does matter is where you're using an event CE that's supposed to be a 50% charge CE, but you haven't gotten it to MLB yet. At that point, it's probably only 30% charge, so having the maxed mana loading will help out. But for everything other than that, I do think you're going to be running him alongside 50% CEs to really help him out in his 3-turn scenario. And even in the scenarios where you don't, maybe you're trying to start him from 0 with someone like Kuro, you can do that. You can use a Black Grail on him. It's a little bit convoluted. Party cost will be a concern, but it is possible. The issue at that, though, is that even then, the mana loading's still not necessarily the most ideal setup, because turn 1, you're going to want to pop his charge skill, which is 50%, kind of leaving you that nice, easy segue for another 50% from Koyanskaya right there. So having the mana loading would just sort of erode into the usefulness of that. It's not a bad problem. I'd still say you're safe to get it and unlock it, but it's not going to be super useful like it may be on other units. His extra attack finesse improvement then might be your go-to choice, just depending on what you're up against. Again, like I said, do consider the event CE issue there that you may want the mana loading, but otherwise this is sort of going to be your default because extra attack performance is never a bad thing. It's always decent. It just may not be the best thing for a lot of people's appends. It's definitely going to improve his NP gain, his star generation, two things that we maybe had concerns with. So helping that out on the extra attack, I do think is nice, and it will increase the actual damage of it as well, just kind of further helping his card performance. Then we, from here, get to his NP. He has a Buster 8-hit AoE NP. And I think something that's worthy of paying attention to is that it's going to seal all enemies NP for 1 turn, activating first, before the damage goes out. So you're going to be able to seal NPs and make it so that, again, the enemy can't necessarily, counter your NP by coming back and just responding immediately in turn. It is nice usually to have a blanket, I don't know why that popped up. It's nice usually to have a blanket, like, AoE NP seal or skill seal, as it can lock down an entire wave of enemies, and it can definitely be a nice thing to have. But I do think that's at least, neither here nor there. It may be good in sort of servant gauntlet type challenges and stuff where you're a little bit worried about like break bar effects across multiple units, or again, units just using charge skills and stuff like that. But up against, normal fodder and trash and farming and stuff like that, I don't think this is going to be that big of a concern. Obviously, this can still apply to a singular boss in a final wave and stuff like that, so it's definitely better to have it than not. Could be very useful just depending, and especially since you can sort of force a 3-turn. This does mean that you could fundamentally lock down a boss for 3 turns and make it so that they just can't NP. So it is a nice thing as long as the boss doesn't resist it. It would be a very useful tool at being able to lock someone down and stop them from just annihilating you on the back end with an NP. So don't sleep on that NP seal aspect of his kit. He's then from there going to deal damage to all of them and reduce all enemies' quick, arts, and buster resistance activating first for 1 turn. So he does have a damage dealing overcharge. Since this will go out before his damage, this will add to the damage of his NP, giving him an additional 20% buster performance. But the good news is it will stay for the duration of that turn, allowing you to then subsequently card after his NP, which is very likely to be a Buster Brave Chain due to the triple Buster cards in his deck, allowing you to really pop off with subsequent follow-up damage. So I do think that's a really, really nice thing that he has. I did see someone call him a little bit similar to Karna in that regard before, and I do kind of agree with that it is nice to have that sort of follow-up damage. So As to what CE you're going to want to utilize with Takeda Shingen, obviously cranking is going to be my chief recommendation here. This is a CE that's going to come out next year here on NA. It's from the Bunyan event. If you guys manage to have it still on JP, it is absolutely phenomenal. It is all attack scaling, Buster up, NP damage up, and battle gauge at 50% to begin battle. So really a just stellar performing CE for anyone that needs to start from 50%. It is pretty much your go-to with regards to Buster units. There is also the older aerial drive. This can also really work for you. It is still also all attack scaling. And the reality is it's going to trade basically 2% extra Buster performance against the 5% extra NP damage. It's always kind of a little bit nicer in an Oberon comp to have more NP damage. So cranking does get a little bit of an edge in this battle, but aerial drive was sort of the gold standard for years before cranking and is still very good if you don't manage to have it. This is a permanently available CE nowadays on JP, so there's really no excuse not to get it, as it can really help you. And then from there, you also have another permanent C that's been added here of late, and that's Holy Night Supper, aka Holy Night Dinner. This one is also really solid. This was the gold standard for years at the beginning of the game, pretty much. And you guys can see it's all attack scaling, starting gauge of 50%, NP damage of 15%, and then critical damage of 15%. So a decent all-rounder, not just a one-off NP type of buff. Definitely can be useful down the stretch due to that crit damage. And then there are other ones like Stitching Your Beloved. This was a welfare from the Little Big Tengu event. It is all attack scaling. It also has 15% NP damage and 50% gauge, but then it has critical damage of Buster cards by 20%, so 5% more than Holy Night Supper, but it is specific to Buster cards. Granted, with a unit like Shingen that's got triple Buster deck, I mean, that's still pretty good. He's going to get that quite a bit, so you don't really have to worry about it too much in that regard. Then from there, as I did mention, you could utilize Black Grail. This is going to revolve around you trying to use Kuro in the comp. This is going to be a double Koyanskaya Oberon Kuro comp. You're not going to have very much free party costs. You got to be really careful about the craft essences that you use here. You'll have to use MASH as the sixth unit there in order to reduce cost as much as you can. But the way you're going to want to do this is you're going to want to end up starting out with something like Koyanskaya and Oberon, and then actually end up subbing out the Koyanskaya for Kuro, basically getting her buffs on, and then having Kuro leave the party as of turn 2. That's how you're going to be able to make the charge work, and that should allow him to actually be able to touch Black Grail, which may be useful if you're comparing him to people maybe outside of his niche, like, say, Tiamat, that has recently been out on JP. That obviously has very good damage. So definitely, I think that's going to be a little bit more of a concern. But yes, you don't have to run that. You're not going to want to run that all the time. But the option is there to run that should you just really need more firepower at the expense of everything else. And I do think that is one thing that we can say is good about the Kuro comps, in spite of the fact that they are somewhat convoluted to be able to run. And then, obviously, from there, we can talk a little bit more about his damage. Now, damage has been kind of the main criticism of him. And I want to be clear here. His damage is not bad. We just legitimately have some monsters out there. Now, keep in mind, this is the NP damage list, and this is neutral numbers. This is units under their own power, not including mystic codes, craft essences, or any sort of support character alongside them. So it's just people using their own buffs on themselves against a neutral enemy, so no class effectiveness. Obviously, you have to take these sort of things with a grain of salt. They're very much a vacuum type of scenario, but it is at least interesting for comparative purposes. You can see in such a vacuum, a unit like Iskandar really pops off. However, we know from practicality that Iskandar has no charge, so you can make him 3-turn now with a Kuro comp, but it's not necessarily going to be the easiest thing, nor is it going to do the most damage. That being said, you do have a unit like Ivan the Terrible that has since become a 30% charger. He's now able to start from 50%, just like any other 50%er can. His damage is actually very good, so comparing him to Takeda Shingen is probably a lot more applicable. Same thing with Francis Drake. She's another 50% charging AoE unit. Drake, though, on the other hand, has had some upgrades and has come a long way. So, while Drake does slightly out-edge him pound for pound, Takeda Shingen actually does scale a little bit better than her. It just kind of boils down to she starts with enough of a lead that he doesn't out damage her really, other than on turn 1 of a 3-turn loop. So you end up in weird scenarios like that. But again, I don't think that's bad. The fact that he's being compared immediately to a unit that has had several upgrades is actually pretty good in that regard. And again, we're not talking about him being all the way down on the list. As you guys can see, he's right here, just south of Santa Alter, who is a welfare. Now, you probably will get Santa Alter here soon, probably from next month's Evocation Festival, assuming they do one. But I can say, even if you don't get her there, you will eventually get her, and her damage is good. The issue that she has is she's somewhat like a Skandar. She just doesn't have charge. So unless they end up giving her an upgrade, I don't think you have too much to worry about there in that regard, as Takeda Shingen will just be a little bit more usable. That's kind of the takeaway from a lot of our units with a lot of charge, is how usable they are. And so to give you guys a little bit of an idea on terms of damage, you guys can see here that basically, with regards to his sort of ideal normal setup, it's going to be 2 times Koyan with an Oberon and a level 100 cranking and a level 10 Neo plug suit. Don't worry if you don't have all of these, it's just for comparative sake. But at MP1 on wave 1, he will end up doing about 52k, and these are neutral numbers as well, just with supports and mystic codes when applicable. Wave 2, he's going to be doing about 76, almost 77k there. And Wave 3, he's going to end up doing about 182k. So definitely not too bad. You can see the Oberon boost coming in right there in the final wave, but it does happen. Now, comparing to a Europa, on the other hand, another 30% charging unit, Europa's only going to do about 45k on Wave 1, 45k on Wave 2, and then 142k on Wave 3. Europa, I think, is where a lot of people would say she's not bad, but she is kind of in that realm of, hey, now that Drake's had an upgrade, she kind of needs one too, and has kind of for a while. Then you also end up with a unit like Ivan, and I think Ivan's going to be a little bit more the benchmark to compare him against outside of Drake, because Ivan's going to come in at about 72k on Wave 1, 84k on Wave 2, and 237k on Wave 3. So you can see Ivan is going to outscale him a little bit, but Ivan also has some crazy synergy, because again, he probably was never originally meant to be able to 3-turn, and then when they actually enabled it, they went, oh crap, what have we done? And then to round it all off, you've got Drake here at NP1, who's going to come in at about 51k, just barely getting beat by him up here at 52k. Then Wave 2, you're going to be looking at 85k in her idyllic setup. And then that's already surpassed him. And then Wave 3, you're going to be staring at 213k. So again, only really beat by Ivan at that point, and we kind of already know what Ivan does. Ivan is a little bit of a monster in that regard, but you can see Shingen doesn't stack up too bad. He's outperforming Europa. He's pretty much on par with Drake. And Drake kind of only edges him a little bit by turn 3. And then basically Ivan is still ahead, but that's just kind of how Ivan has been. So I do think there's a little bit of an interesting issue there. But keep in mind he is a 50% unit compared to Ivan being only a 30% unit. And there are those scenarios like I talked about with an uncompleted event CE that, you know, Shingen's going to just be able to walk right in and still be able to use potentially. Whereas Ivan's going to go, oh crap, I can't be used in this setup until I end up in some more advantageous situation. So that's something to consider whenever we're considering these units. So that's why I think you're going to see a lot of these comparisons to Drake, because Drake's the other 50%er, and I don't think they're unfair, but I also don't think it means that Shingen is bad. And keep in mind, like we said, that Shingen does have some interesting staying power. He's got that 3 hits, 3 turns of hard invuln there, so definitely a nice thing for him to have. But yeah, I do think Shingen is a decent unit. I don't think he's the most broken unit or anything like that, which, like I said, I think draws some criticisms nowadays, especially on the social media sites, because some people end up saying, you know, like, oh, basically he's not breaking the game, therefore he's not worthy of my attention. I don't think that matters. I think if you like a unit like Shingen, especially if you like his character, especially historically or design-wise, feel free to roll for him. I think you'll be absolutely satisfied with him. He is still a very good unit. If you're worried about his damage, try to pump it up to NP2, but I really don't think it'll be necessary outside of 90++ content, and I think you'll see that just having the proper supports will really help him pop off. So let me know what you guys think about Shingen. Are you guys going to be rolling for him? Which Ascension form is your favorite? Mine personally is the 3rd form. It looks amazing to me. And I'll be curious to hear you guys' thoughts below. I'll see you guys for the next one. Have a good one. Okay, chat, there you go. There is Shingen in the books. Makes me want to save for New Year. Yeah, and like I said, I'm always going to make the case for a unit, but I'm never going to tell you have to roll, right? Don't really care for his art. How can you say that? How can you say that to your Lord and Savior, big fluffy man? Okay? Like, look at that. He wide. He thick. Now, I know the way that I would counter this myself. I would say, well, Ivan's wide and thick too, but, you know. I stand by it's a fly. What do you mean it's a fly? What's a fly? Does this look like a fly to you? This looks like a big scary man to me. Like, chat, imagine if you gave him, like, googly eyes. It'd be terrifying. Look at his faces now real quick. Let me see. I'm trying to remember who he reminds me of. That's like a JoJo face right there. What the fuck? What the hell? Is the epitome of a sweat emote there. Man's wearing the whole Burlington coat factory in 3rd Ascension? Yes. Yes, he is, and that's what makes it amazing. Actually, do we have the other forms? Oh, so the 3rd form, or sorry, the 2nd form doesn't have the crazy face there. Man's got them DSLs. Listen, you fantasize about what you want. I don't want to hear it. But yeah, I think he's pretty interesting. Okay, Shinpachi. This is going to be so much more difficult to try and make the case for. I'll stick with the Shinsengumi. Okay. So I just want to say that I'm disappointed that this Shinpachi isn't Gintama Shinpachi. But besides that, I do think he has some pretty crazy forms here, including his young form, which is just like wild to me. He definitely has some nice stuff there. He looks like a human form of Shinpachi from Tekken in Ascension 1. Yeah. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, so it's when receiving attacks. Fandom has this buff on defense is a terrible wording for it. That's why I had to like sit there and go like, wait, the heck? Right. Okay. I had to remember that. That's a spicy one. Um Sorry, chat. I'm just strategizing here. Al, thank you for the resub. Thank you for the 4 months. Hope you're doing good. Wait. Oh, that's so bad. Kuro confuses me. Yeah, it's a... Could I make that work in reverse? No, it has to go in this order. So, you literally... You literally have to start out with the unit, Kuro, Oberon, and then wave 2. You have to get rid of one of the Oberons for the other Oberon and prep Kuro to leave after that turn. And then turn 3, it's the unit, Koyanskaya, and the remaining Oberon. It's the only way you can make it work. It's god awful. But it is what it is. Like, this is sort of the problem with any unit that doesn't have charge. If you're trying to make them 3-turn, the only way you're doing it is with a Super Scope, with double Oberon, like some other 50% charger, and then Kuro. And it has to flow in that exact order, which means that one of the Oberons gets screwed because you don't get to put the third Oberon buff. So you're just losing out on 50% Buster Up there because the alternative is bricking the unit on turn 2, and you're not going to do that. It's just terrible. Why are you trying to loop with them? I'm not so much as just the proof of concept, just comparative sake. That'd be the only way. Like, because I agree. Like, you're going to be able to get to his NP and fire it off, but his main focus is crit. Like, that's where I think his bread is going to be buttered. So trying to get him in there with an appropriate setup is going to be more important than, assuming you're running him in a team and not trying to solo with him. I think that's going to be the bigger thing. But I was just sitting there going like, man, how the heck do I do that? And I had to like run through it in my head. I freaking hate Kuro, man. I hate having to come up with those. Because I just have to like sit there and think like, all right, how do I do it? Do I do it this way? Is there another way I can do it? I hate that Kuro comps have so many like entry and exit points. And that is what makes them difficult to actually think about. Okay, sorry. I had to send words of discouragement to a friend. Kuro seems like an idea that Lasengal had that didn't work. No, Kuro works. Kuro absolutely works. Kuro is just like, I think the community wants Kuro to be more than Kuro is. Like, you can fit her in. It's worthy of mentioning, but not all roads need to lead to Kuro, despite what people want that to be. All right. And so it's worthy of knowing that it's there and what it's capable of, but actually trying to deal with that is, you know, a problem, I would say. Okay. Just a second, chat. There. Does that make sense? I'm getting a degree in Kuro now. I'm amazed that I understand Kuro as well as I do. Because I agree with you guys. It hurts my head to think about it. I've had to think about it too much, though, is the problem. Don't have to deal with that headache and shove it all into people like Avalon and Cad. No, see, that's the problem, Peanut. Like, if you ever want to use Kuro, you're gonna have to understand it. That's the insidious nature. Because, like, I can't tell you most of the time. Like, it absolutely depends on the comp and the unit. That's the issue that you run into. So, like, every single unit usually has a different sort of, like, setup. You can largely categorize them into, like, 2 or 3, but, like, man, as to which one they are, it just depends. Come to that problem when she's on better and I didn't want to roll. Did the stream bug or has Cat not spoken for a half hour? No, it's not been a half hour, but I have definitely been typing something here. trying to get an answer real quick. But I can basically go ahead and start setting up here because it's not going to be too terrible. Oh. So, I think we're just going to switch this to Kaleidoscope. Oh my god, did I spell that wrong? Yeah, Kaleidoscope. And then we're going to toss in another one. Good old Victor. Evictor, chat. Evictor. Yep. Chat, this just in. He's stronger than Hercules. He's stronger than Hercules. He's strong. No, I'm just kidding. Don't get the wrong idea. Victor hardly knew her? Yep. Oh, is he single target? I thought he was AoE too. Nope, he's single target. Okay, let's talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Shinpachi. Or as you guys should know him, hold on. Yeah, this is the only way that you should know him. If you know, you know. That's all I'm saying. Based Gintama reference, there it is. Crystallized version, yes. Crystal Soul. Singer, no. If you've watched Gintama, you absolutely get it. If you haven't watched Gintama, it's difficult to explain. It's just straight up, it's a amazing, like, internal joke in that show. Okay, that's the thumbnail. Yeah, maybe we could do that. But I'm not even sure that people would understand. So it is what it is. Anyways, let's get started. Hey guys, my name is Khadroth, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Nagakura Shinpachi, our newest berserker on the JP server. Now, Shinpachi is a limited 4-star. He is come out here with the new Guda event. He is obviously, as a result, going to be a little bit difficult to get your hands on outside of that, especially nowadays in FGO, where some of our 4-stars are actually some of our rare units, because we get the 5-star banners almost every year, but 4-star banners, especially giving them a solo rate up, not the easiest thing to come across over time. So that ends up being one of the concerns. We did just recently get a 4-star ticket, and that can help alleviate those sorts of things, but there's not always the guarantee that the unit will be selectable in it, and that's something you guys will have to consider. So if you want Shinpachi, the best time to get him will be right now on JP, or in 2 years on NA when it comes out. Obviously, he probably will have another banner into the future, but do you want to risk waiting for that point to happen? Now, keep in mind, I'm not telling you to roll for Shinpachi, but I am going to try to make the case of things that you should consider should you want to roll for Shinpachi. As to whether or not Shinpachi is a good or a bad unit, I will leave that up to you, because I have seen a lot of debate as to whether or not the units on this first banner here for Guda are good. And so I've seen a lot of middling reviews. I don't think these units are bad by any means, but people have a tendency to take the stance of if you're not first, you're last in FGO. So I do think it's something that, you know, I try to combat as much as possible and try to make a case for the unit. Now, that being said, Shinpachi is a little bit of an interesting unit in how he's formed, and you'll see that as we go over his kit. He's not going to be the most prolific looper that you've ever seen. He's not going to be the barn-burning, buster, you know, destroying, absolutely amazing damage dealer. What Shinpachi will do very well is crit, and crit you very hard, and we're going to show that in the kit. So let's go ahead and get started. So right off the bat here, you guys can see he actually does manage to have 10k attack. Now, 10k attack on a 4-star is actually very good. We really like to see these sorts of numbers as, again, this is definitely the upper echelon of what 4-stars have been capable of. So while he is just barely into that 10k range, it is still a good thing. High attack power is usually almost always a good sign. It usually means a unit's card performance will at least on average hit hard, but it doesn't necessarily mean in the case of low attack power that the unit is bad, because a lot of it may just be stuck in their actual steroids in their kit, and again tied into their NP damage in some way to make them pop off in a different manner. But again, high attack power, never a bad thing to have, always like to see it. The concern though is obviously going to be his HP value, and I think, you know, comparing this to another unit that is single target, buster, and a berserker, I can start to look at a unit like Jerker, aka John Ultra Berserker, her summer form. She is an Evocation Festival unit. She is permanently available at this point on JP, so everyone can have her, and she also has a similar problem with rather anemic health. But that's neither here nor there, and we'll kind of compare the two as we go along, but just keep that in the back of your mind that you do have, in most of these cases, a freely available alternative should you desire. Now, taking a look here at the attribute, he is man attribute. He will have only 10-star absorption. This is extremely low, but this is absolutely average for berserkers, so nothing too crazy there. His star generation's also only 4.9, but again, something berserkers are not really known for. And he does have a 0.67 NP charge rate, which is not the best, and we'll talk about that as we go through. His NP charge defense here is 5%. This is pretty standard for berserkers, but this is absolutely stellar in comparison to all other classes. So this is the amount of charge you're going to get per hit, per attack, of anything that hits him. And Shinpachi kind of does want to get hit, but you don't want Shinpachi to get hit, because he is a berserker, and berserkers are rather squishy. So you got to be very careful with that. You're going to want to try to find ways to protect Shinpachi whenever possible. His death rate is an insane 65%. This is exorbitantly high. Definitely be careful of what you take him up against, as you really don't want to take him into anything that does have death procs. And his alignment here is neutral good, which at least neutral is a relatively hard thing to exploit, so you won't necessarily have to deal with too many things that are going to have actual advantage over him in terms of like special alignments and stuff like that. He is a male gender. His basic traits here are hominid, a servant, humanoid, servant, Seven Knights servant, Shinsengumi servant, and weak to enemy Elish. So actually not too much in the way of traits, even though nowadays we start to see units that just have a laundry list of them. Shinpachi's a unit that just doesn't have very many at all. You can see, like his counterpart on the banner, he does end up having a triple buster deck. This is actually fairly standard for berserkers, although we have started to see a lot more change up of that over time. Certainly, this is the classic buster deck that we're used to seeing, and that is the triple buster gorilla deck, as we like to call it, the Unga Boonga deck. So he does have at least average hit counts, with the two exceptions being his quick card at 4 hits and his extra attack at 6 hits. Both of those are going to be quite nice, but again, he's not necessarily going to have anything to really help them pop off. Other than that, I do think the big concern here will be, can you get triple buster cards in order to allow him to really pump his damage, especially if you can lead to a triple buster brave chain that will allow for quite a bit more damage being applied. Now, with regards to his kit here, fandom kind of words this first section a little bit weirdly, so pay attention and I'll try to explain it in a sort of layman's terms. So his first skill here increases his own buster performance for 3 turns by 30%. It's just a nice solid multi-turn steroid that's going to help out not only his MP but also his card performance. He is going to then grant himself an on defense buff. What this means is that anytime he is hit, anytime he receives an attack, he will gain 10 critical stars whenever he takes that attack. So in that regard, he kind of wants to get hit, but you really don't want him to get hit. So think about this more as like, well, at least if I'm going to get hit, I get a little bit of payoff, rather than the strategy of like, hey, I know, I'll get my berserker killed through repeated attacks. That's not going to be what you want to do. Now, he is going to at least grant himself gut status 1 time 3 turns, so you will have a little bit of a hard survival fallback here. This is going to help him stay up in a stretch, or in a pinch rather, if you need him to. But certainly down the stretch, yeah, you just really are not going to want him to get hit too much. Thankfully, the Guts is at least a 3000 HP Guts. Unfortunately, he is a Berserker, so just about everything's effective against him, so 3000 HP, he's still probably going to die. So it just depends, and again, you can use Guts to try and reset a node in terms of attacks, so that maybe you hope that, you know, the Guts gets popped and then the enemy stops attacking you for that turn, thus buying you an extra turn of viability. Otherwise, you end up in a weird situation where there are multiple enemies or multiple units alive. You may end up in a weird scenario where he just gets hit immediately right after, and then you end up losing him right away. So that is something to be concerned with. This is, however, on a 6-turn cooldown, which for a Guts skill is rather rare and certainly a nice thing to see. His second skill here is a self-evasion for 1 turn. So he does get another hard survival skill. This is what's going to help out that rather anemic HP stat. And in comparison with someone like, say, Jerker, while Jerker does have a dodge in her kit, Jerker's really just going to see that get blown through quite a bit, so having sometimes the actual just hard singular turn of evasion can be better than having a, you know, multi-times evasion, just depending on how much the unit is going to get hit. This will also increase his defense for 3 turns by 18%. This isn't a crazy amount, I mean, and I'm going to be honest here, especially in a world in which we have Galatea that has 100% defense in her kit as a Berserker. I think 18% is kind of flimsy, not gonna lie. But again, it is what it is. I do think this at least gives him the multi-turns of duration, so you don't have to worry about when you use the evasion and it's screwing you on defense somehow. You should still have at least some uptime on it, and it should still allow him to take at least a little bit more of a licking than he otherwise would. Again, all of this on a 6-turn cooldown, helping keep those cooldowns low. His third skill here increases his own critical star absorption of Buster cards for 1 turn, which, as you know, he has 3. It is a 5,000% soak, which is excellent. We've started to see this on units like, say, Beowulf, or again, even where Beowulf stole it from, Lalter. Basically, we end up seeing a really high star absorption. That's always good, especially on our Berserkers, because they have such a hard time absorbing stars otherwise. So 5,000 is going to be the amount that he needs, and that is going to be really solid for him. And then to top that off, he's going to get critical damage for 1 turn of 100%. And this is definitely really nice. I think the only problem with this is just the singular turn duration, but usually our 100% crit buffs are only a single turn. They start allowing them to be multi-turn, you start getting into some really crazy stuff that's more like Scotty's wheelhouse and stuff like that. But again, I do think this is going to be a very nice damage amp, and that's why we say a little bit he's going to be somewhat crit focused, and you'll see that a little bit more as we go even deeper. But you can see he does also get 10 crit stars here whenever he activates the skill, and this skill, unlike his other 2, is on a 4-turn cooldown, so you're going to be getting back to this skill even faster. So your goal is going to try to be the uptime of the skill, syncing it up with other buffs, syncing it up with other star bombs, trying to get the stars on his cards, trying to get him to crit, because if you can, he's going to card very hard for you with that high attack stat, that very nice 30% steroid, and now, yes, a 100% crit buff to really help that out. He does get a passive here of Madness Enhancement D+, to just increase his buster performance by 5%. Nothing too crazy, but I think they were a little bit concerned about the overall scalability of those crits on him, and that's kind of why. I do find it very interesting. He's the first servant I've seen, at least in a while, that I can remember that didn't have magic resistance, so there's that. It's actually kind of nice to see that, like, the devs aren't going crazy with power creep for once. So I know people are going to knock that, but like we've started to see a lot of bloat with regards to skill descriptions and effects, passives, and how many a unit has, and you know, just like again over time, units getting more and more and more and more and more. I think this is going to become a huge problem for them over time if they don't rein it in. So seeing them, you know, rein it in here, hopefully is a sign of things to come, and they start to begin to level out and level the playing field rather than trying to always create someone that is just blowing the doors off of everybody else. So definitely an interesting thing to see, but again, nothing too concerning. Now, with regards to his appends, I do recommend his mana loading at least to some extent. This will help you get to an MP faster, so it is going to be nice for him to have. Honestly, though, if you're going to be using him for carding quite a bit, or you're going to be using him for soloing, the extra attack finesse is going to be very good. It's going to increase his already 6-hit extra attack with 50% extra star gen, NP gen, and damage, so definitely a nice thing for him to have, as it was already good to begin with. I do think, you know, this is going to be a little bit more in the eye of the beholder as to which one you prefer, getting to an NP faster or having better performance on you know, brave chains and stuff like that. And it really will depend on how you see yourself using a unit like Shinpachi. Now, that being said, his third append is hot garbage, but that is the way a lot of Berserker third appends are. I just don't really have the strongest opinion of a class-specific crit defense. It can be strong, but with regards to uses for coins, it's probably far better to bank a little bit more on something that's going to be effective all the time, rather than only against certain classes. Now, you could choose to take Shinpachi against only Saber classes here, and then it would have a lot of value potentially. But at the end of the day, I think you're just going to find yourself in scenarios where you go like, hey, I feel like using him. I want to have fun with it. And that may or may not be against the Saber. So at that point, it just really depends. Now, again, this does decrease the amount of chance that an enemy is going to crit him quite significantly. But a lot of the times, enemies don't need crits to kill a Berserker. They can just card them to death over time, and it usually will work. So this is where actually supporting Shinpachi could be useful to you. Actually giving him the tools that he needs to be protected and stay alive will be really helpful. Units like Merlin might actually be super strong with him, particularly if you can manage to find other forms of survivability into the comp that would allow Shinpachi to sort of stay up over time. I do think that's going to be one of the concerns with him, but certainly if you can manage to manage his cooldowns fairly well, I think you will see that he is going to have a decent amount of survivability for what he predominantly is, and that is a carding crit-based unit. Now, with regards to his Noble Phantasm, he actually does have a damage-dealing Noble Phantasm at a single target for hit. It is going to increase his own critical damage by 100% for one turn, activating first. So yes, Shinpachi has 200% crit damage in his kit. That is pretty nutty, considering we're not factoring in any supports at this moment. You start factoring in something like Merlin's third skill, or like Koyan Skaya with all of her buffs and star bombs, and you start thinking about just how you could utilize that to really start critting hard, and yeah, you could get quite a bit of actual firepower there in order to make that happen. So definitely some nice stuff. And then he's going to remove one enemy's evasion buffs, activating first, then deal damage to one enemy. So you can't dodge him. You could invuln him, but you can't dodge him, which is at least somewhat interesting. And he does also have a damage dealing overcharge that increases Buster performance for one turn, activating first by 20%. Will scale up. The scaling is not too crazy, but it's not awful. I do think this could be somewhat useful, but nothing too, like, you know, game breaking or anything like that. Now, that being said, is it, you know, gonna be the major attraction is gonna be using his NP? Honestly, I don't think his MP is gonna do a super amount of damage for you. It's not gonna be bad, but it's not gonna be like, oh man, this is crazy numbers. I think the big thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fire the NP, maybe try to break a bar with it, and then hope to follow up. You're going to hope that the remaining, again, damage output from his subsequent cards after the NP is going to make it worth it, especially as you'll have the 100% crit damage there. So you're going to really want stars. You're really going to want to synergize and make sure that you fire off everything on the turns that you want. So to me, Shinpachi is going to be very much a unit about controlling when you use certain things on him. Every unit kind of has that consideration, but to me, it's really going to make or break Shinpachi as to how good of a unit he is. He could be an absolute crit monster, or he could end up being, relatively squishy and not that damaging, depending on how you align his buffs and stars. That's going to be the big thing, to the key to his usefulness. As for what you should be running on Shinpachi, if you're going to try to get some charge out of the outset, you're going to try to focus a little bit more on the NP damage. Something like Cranking's not going to be bad. You're going to get the 8% Buster Performance, NP damage of 15%, and then NP gauge of 50%. It's all attack scaling. Aerial Drive is a permanently available C, a little bit more in that route, a little bit more balanced towards actual Buster Performance. So less in the way of NP damage, but a little bit slightly more in the way of Buster Performance. So certainly not bad. Something like Holy Knight's Supper, though, may actually be better because, one, it doesn't have a Buster buff in it, so it just instead has the straight NP damage. And two, it does have critical damage, so even more crit to be able to really allow for some crazy carding numbers there. Stitching Your Beloved is another welfare CE from the Little Big Tengu event that happened. And again, this one's also pretty decent as it's all attack scaling, also with 50% gauge and basically NP damage of 15%, but then critical damage of specifically Buster cards by 20. So somewhat restrictive, but because he does have 3 Buster cards, I don't think you're going to be too concerned. Definitely some interesting stuff. And then obviously something like Kaleidoscope for just being able to NP right off the bat. Like maybe you're just going hard in the paint. Maybe you're setting them up with like double Koyan Sky. You just want to NP 2 times, really quick succession. Maybe get some cards on the back end of that second NP or something like that. Maybe with Koyan Sky as Star Bombs and crit buffs. So there are, certain synergies where you may just wish to run this. But if you're just looking for a raw performance-based card, anything can really work. Anything that gives Buster, anything that gives crit, definitely going to be nice for Shinpachi, particularly if it gives stars as well. But honestly, probably the best recommendation I can give you is something like Victor of the Moon. Victor of the Moon is one of your original CEs from back in the day that if you manage to be lucky enough to have it at MLB, scales all the way up to 2400 attack power. Most CEs nowadays only go to 2000. And this one is going to give you Buster Performance of 15% and then critical damage of 25% on top of that. So definitely going to be nice if you're ending up in more of a long form carding type of scenario, as this will work for him as long as he's got those Buster cards, as long as he's able to secure those crits, regardless of, giving charge or NP damage or anything like that. So this one's going to be a little bit more focused on card performance. Now, with regards to his NP damage, obviously we've got quite a bit of power in the single target Berserker category. This, I think, is going to be one of the concerns for Shinpachi, is when we're looking at NP damage, which really won't be his wheelhouse, how do we see him performing? And so you can see there are other units like Beowulf that are going to be around 47k. I don't think it's really too fair to compare him to someone like Kentoki that's, got charge, got a lot of buffs. I don't think you're going to be using them in the same ways necessarily. Maybe a unit like Ku would certainly be a lot more of a Carter and Survivor type Berserker. I think that may be a little bit more of an appropriate one. And Hijikata as well at 49k coming in here. Certainly has the 1 HP memes that we like to talk about with him, where you can really Qingong his ass and make him do some solid damage. But I do think realistically you're going to be looking more at the Nobu Berserkers, at the John Alter Berserkers that you're going to be able to get for free. You're going to be looking a little bit more maybe even at someone like Herc, who is going to be your sort of cockroach and card performer. So Shinpachi comes in here at about 38.9k, almost 39k, a little bit north of Herc. However, the thing with Herc is Herc does have the Indomitable stacks that he very likely will run into carding scenarios. So yeah, you could very easily get multiple of these and very easily have a scenario in which Herc just does some crazy damage. So don't necessarily think about this as, oh man, Shinpachi does more damage than Herc, because Herc is a little bit of a scaling nightmare for enemies to face, and that is definitely apparent once you have his Bond C. Granted, not everyone's going to have Herc, not everyone's going to have his Bond C unlocked, so it really just depends on what you're up against. But I do think Shinpachi's pretty decent in that regard, and his scalability isn't really bad here. If you do manage to get him to NP5, 64, almost 65k here is pretty solid. The issue, again, is going to be that lack of charge, that lack of ability to secure an NP on command, unless you do use supports in order to try and get that. So don't look too hard into the NP damage numbers. In fact, you could 3-turn with Shinpachi. This is a big what if, take it with a grain of salt, but if you wanted to do it, you'd be looking at a comp where it's like Koyan, Skya, double Oberon, and Kuro. And yeah, you can make that work, but it's really convoluted. You actually need to start out with like Kuro and Oberon, and then sub out an Oberon in Wave 2 without using the Oberon's third skill, which means you only get access to the Koyan Skya buffs on turn 3. So it's not that good of a setup for him to actually deal damage. But you could brute force a 3-turn out of him. It would require, again, a level 100k, well, sorry, not level 100, but at least an MLB K-scope. But basically, to give you an idea of what those damage numbers would look like, you'd be looking at about 55k at NP1 for turn 1, basically 99k there for turn 2, and then 318k, which is actually pretty damn respectable for wave 3, and those are neutral numbers as well. So definitely an interesting thing, to say the least, that his scalability would skyrocket, but that's also because he'd be rather anemic in the early waves there, since you're not able to utilize actual good buffs. But definitely an interesting thing. Now, in comparison, a unit like Herc, who's also got no charge and would find himself in the exact same comp and setup, you'd be looking at about 50k at NP1 on wave 1, 91k on wave 2, and 331k on wave 3. So basically less than him on waves 1 and 2, but more than him on wave 3. This really just depends on, obviously, scalability of the buffs and how they interact with the unit. But it's an interesting thing nonetheless, and I do think it's worthy of attention there, at least for comparative sake. Does this mean that Shinpachi is going to replace Herc? No. Does this mean that Shinpachi is useless in the face of Herc? Also no. So it's completely up to you guys to decide whether or not you wish to roll for Shinpachi and whether or not you want him. Odds are, if you're going to be rolling for him, you're probably also rolling for Takeda Shingen, who's on his banner. So it really just depends on what you guys are after. If you like the character, if you like the unit, go for it. Don't feel like he's a bad unit. In fact, I think he'll actually be pretty fun to card with and to try and secure some monster crits with. So there's definitely going to be some scenarios where people are just going to load him out, basically gear him up to the teeth and watch him just go to town on things. And I think you'll see some pretty crazy numbers off of that, just due to the crit modifiers that he has already latently in his kit. But again, let me know what you guys think about Shinpachi. How do you guys like his design? Which Ascension form is your favorite? I think mine's probably that second Ascension form. He looks crazy in that form. And then again, will you be rolling for him when he comes to NA or whatever server you play on? Be curious to hear you guys' thoughts. I will see you guys for the next video. I hope you enjoyed. Have a good one. Cut. All right, chat, 2 down. I got one more I got to do. He reminds me of Hijikata, but definitely plays differently. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Not gonna lie, when you sent me the description, I was like, wait, is that a 2 times Kuro, 2 times Oberon comp? And I was confused, and then I saw the code. Like I said, I think it's just a scenario that it's like people don't want to have to think about it. People want to ignore it. In that regard, if you wanted to call her a failure, I do kind of agree that, like, Kuro is the epitome. And you guys remember, I actually called it out when she came out, that, like, I became frustrated between Kuro and Baobon Summer, that, like, the kits were getting way too complex. Like, I understand them. Some of you guys understand them. We play the game a lot. We understand the way these things work. But, like, your average player looks at that shit and just goes like, Like they don't want to look at it, basically. Dad's grinding vids like a lotto. I just need to get stuff out. I need to get stuff recorded, so better to record it tonight and get it done than anything else. The next one's not going to be too difficult though, because it's not going to be the welfare. I'll punt the welfare till tomorrow, chat. The next one is going to be an NA one. So this is one that I need to get done in case they actually do announce it. And this one should be fairly obvious. I don't want to look at it either. Yeah. Like Kiara Summer. Kiara Summer's really like just one gimmick of hers that's bad. I think the issue that I have with a unit like Baobon Summer is that Baobon's got like 2 or 3. So it's like, okay, how the hell does all this work? Like that's kind of the issue that you run into with her. Like, I'm gonna be real with you, chat. I low-key know what Baobon Summer does, but I haven't used Baobon Summer religiously since she came out. So it's to the point that if I tried to go use her right this second on JP, I would need to go look it up again. Like, there's that much of a, like, laundry list of things in her kit. Don't forget Clay and Sky of Light. Oh, I'm not worried about that. We don't have to talk about Clay and Sky of Light. 1, because I already did the video. And 2, because, like, chat, that ain't coming out for a while. Like, Tunguska's gonna be after Christmas. Like, I gotta get Tunguska prepped by December 22nd. That's still like 3 weeks away. Yeah, just a random question. What do you think is the best 60% charge C for Gray for 3 turning? There's Partake with the King, which I think is just raw Buster. I know there's like the Annie 6 DE that's Buster. And then there's like Battle Olympia, and I think those are your 3. I don't think it's going to be Battle Olympia because Gray... actually, no, I think there's another one that's Buster and Quick. Is that the NE6 one? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, there's Empty Garden here. Wait, no, sorry, that's not it. That's actually 50%. Okay, it does show the MLB effect, so I can search by 60. Yeah, there you go. Celebrate Memories here, I think is it. This one's split stats, though. But yeah, I don't remember. I could have sworn there was another one, but maybe not. With 60% charge and 15% MP damage. That's the best for her? 60% charge and 15% MP damage? Is there? Walk in the Park? Yeah, this one's also split. Yeah, I mean, like, split stats isn't the end of the world. Like, if you have a good CE and you just weren't gonna level it up anyways, it's not the end, right? Like, but yeah. Anyways, let's talk Martha Santa. I don't really have to prep anything for this because, like, what craft essence should you use with her? I don't know, any craft essence. Like, it's really not bad. She also doesn't have damage dealing stuff. So let's talk Martha Santa here. And chat, you may be surprised by this. Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today I'm going to be talking to you about your newest upcoming welfare on NA, Martha Santa. So Martha Santa is a caster. She is coming to us with the new Christmas event. You guys may have already seen the lotto guide that I put out that kind of talked about her and mentioned her somewhat. Again, I do think don't look the gift horse in the mouth here. She is a quick caster, but while I do think she could have been a little bit better had her NP instead been arts, it actually really isn't that big of a deal. She actually does end up having a very nice kit for damage amplification, and I think that's what you guys are going to see as we go through, and why I think you should definitely not skimp on this event and still manage to pick her up, because she can be very useful to you at times, and can actually outdamage even an Oberon in some circumstances, so there is some reasons to have her and use her. So, taking a look at her kit here real quick, you guys can actually see she's got only 8k attack. We're not going to be super concerned with this because she is a support unit. We're going to predominantly be trying to use her as just sort of a backup and buffer. So, as a result of that, low attack power isn't going to be sort of the greatest of concerns with her. She does have 12.6k HP. This is at least somewhat concerning because the real reason that we may wish to use her is in some challenge setups. So you don't want her to die. She doesn't really have a whole lot in the way of survivability, so that is going to be one of the concerns with her, and this is where I think the criticism of her having a quick NP rather than an arts NP, I do think the arts NP would have actually served her better in sort of scenarios where you could have triple arts chained and help utilize this in order to give other units charge, or to help keep her alive and get her back to another NP, but it is what it is. So again, 12.6k is not anemic, but it's not the best, and it just really, you're going to have to wait and see as to how it performs. Her attribute here is going to be a man attribute. Her star absorption is only 51. This is not too terrible. It's just kind of what it is for casters. And then her star generation rate is going to be 10.8, which is at least solid, and she will be a quick unit, so generating stars is going to be the worst thing in the world on her. She does have a 0.66 NP gain rate from attacking. This is okay. It's nothing too crazy, nothing too bad. She does only have a 3% NP charge defense rate, but again, this is pretty standard for most units. Her death rate here is 36%. This is a little bit higher than average, but again, I just think you should only be concerned if you're going up against something with death proc. Maybe don't take her in those circumstances, as she doesn't necessarily have the best rate. Her alignment is lawful good, certainly stuff that can be exploited, but again, it's up to you. And she is female gender, hominidae servant, humanoid, riding, servant, 7 knights servant, and weak to intimate elish. So not a whole lot of traits either to exploit. Her deck here is a single buster, double arts, double quick deck. This does allow at least for some triple arts comps with her 2 arts cards, but certainly this again is going to be where the quick interference type kind of comes in here with her as a support. Having the double quick cards as a caster is a relative rarity. Usually we've only seen this in a couple of scenarios, Okuni being one of them. So it's definitely an interesting thing in that regard, as casters are not a class that is known for any sort of affiliation with the quick card. And she's not going to be your last quick caster that you're going to see in the game, but I do think obviously this is going to be somewhat of concern with her carding and her deck. That being said, at least quick cards can generate some NP, so it's not the end of the world. She will at least have 4 NP generating cards, then as a result, Buster card, obviously you can make it generate some NP charge, but it's not usually going to be the best for that sort of thing. But again, her hit counts are going to be at least average on the Arts and Buster card. The quick card is actually going to be 1 above average, and the extra attack is going to be 1 below average, kind of evening each other out. Now, with regards to her kit here, you can see that she increases one ally's attack for 3 turns. So this is a targetable skill. She will increase their max HP for 3 turns. So again, a little bit of a targetable heal. And max HP is nice because it doesn't care how much HP you currently have. Even if you're sitting at cap, it will still extend your cap in order to allow for it. So it is a total heal. It is a complete heal in that sense that, like, it's not going to care. Whether you're at 1 HP or cap of HP, you will still get the effect of max HP, which is nice. She's then going to charge their NP gauge by 20%, so she has a targetable 20% charge. And this is actually a nice thing for her, as she can utilize this either on herself or, again, on someone else. Most cases, you're going to want to use this on someone else, and this can be used to help them get to an NP. I do wish that she had maybe a little bit more charge here, but that's probably asking a lot for someone that we know is a welfare, so it just really depends on what you're doing. Again, all of this on a 6-turn cooldown. Her second skill here seals all enemies' NPs for 1 turn. This can be useful in some niche scenarios where you just need to stop an enemy from firing off, and then it reduces their defense for 3 turns by 20%. So again, just another nice steroid potentially to have in this. Obviously, defense can't be carried between waves, but it certainly could be carried between turns on the same boss. So depending on whether or not you're in a farming scenario or a challenge scenario, this could be either, you know, a single turn of usefulness or potentially multiple turns of usefulness. And in that regard, it is a strong skill, also on a 6-turn cooldown. Her third skill here increases one ally's critical star absorption, so again, another targetable skill, by 5,000%. This is stellar because this means that you can actually force just about any unit you want soak stars, because it is such a strong absorption skill. This is going to be really useful for units like Avengers and Berserkers that just have exorbitantly low star absorption rate, and it's just going to make sure that you get the stars to the unit that you want, that you're trying to buff and trying to make do all the damage, which is really, really good for that. It's then also going to be a crit star bomb, so it's going to give you some of the stars to help out with that, and it's going to charge Martha's own NP gauge, and this is probably an often overlooked aspect, because it is a 30% charge. Now, the thing to keep in mind is Martha is a welfare. You will get coins for Martha, so we're going to talk about that right here in a second, but basically, this is all going to be on a 6-turn cooldown. For passive skills here, give her Territory Creation B for some extra arts performance, Item Construction D just for debuff success rate with that, you know, defense down and stuff, and then Writing EX to improve her quick performance by 12%. So her quick card actually low-key going to be kind of nutty for a caster. Now, that being said, we get to the append skills, and the one I'm immediately going to bring up to you is mana loading. You absolutely, unequivocally should unlock this and should max this for her. The reason why: if you want to utilize Martha, a lot of her utility is actually tied up in her NP. So having mana loading maxed out gives you 20% charge. Having her third skill maxed out gives you 30% charge. That is 50% right there, and a lot of events, especially farm events that you'll find yourself in, will have a 50% charge CE. So stuff like, say, a lotto or a raid, you might find that you end up having the ability to get Martha to full under her own power just by starting her out with an appropriate CE. That is very useful in terms of setup to be able to have. Because that absolutely, if you were thinking that Martha's kit was maybe a little lackluster to this point, is going to help propel her into another order of magnitude of usefulness. So, obviously, I'm going to recommend getting the mana loading first and foremost. The extra attack finesse, honestly, probably not a big deal for her. You will get the coins. Feel free to unlock it, but I wouldn't necessarily say you have to invest in it. And the third append with anti-ruler attack damage aptitude, you're just not going to, because you're not going to actually be trying to damage people with Martha. So again, it is what it is. I would definitely recommend the second append, but really nothing else besides that. Her Noble Phantasm is a support NP, and it is a quick NP, making it our first quick support NP on a caster. Yes, that's right. Even Scotty has an arts NP herself. So it's a little bit weird that they ended up doing this for Martha. And like I said, I think had this actually just been an arts NP, it would have worked out for her a little bit better because she would have had some extra art synergy, even if they wanted to make her a little bit more quick-oriented. But it is what it is. From here, you can see that the NP is going to increase the party's attack by 20% for 3 turns, so yet another steroid. She obviously had the steroid right there on the first skill that's going to increase one ally's attack by 30%. She had the defense down on the second skill for 20%, and then now she ends up having party-wide attack for 3 turns. She's then going to increase the party's damage against demon, divine, and undead enemies for 3 turns. Now, remember when I said that this can out-damage even an Oberon? Let's think about this in terms of the totality of the kit. She's going to gain 20 crit star bomb here, and she's also going to recover the party's HP by 2,000. Now, I'll talk about that here in a second, but the big thing you guys need to focus on here is that she has given you now functionally 70% in terms of steroids, plus the additional party damage. And it's, again, party-wide, not just, the damage-dealing unit. So if you had to use someone else's cards, they're also going to be getting this power mod for 3 turns. And because she is a welfare, you will be getting NP5 of her. So this is going to be a guaranteeable 50% power mod. So you already saw as she gave functionally 70% in terms of modifiers before this, and now she gives an additional 50%, bringing her up to a whopping 120% in terms of modifiers. Now again, this doesn't all work like that. Some modifiers stack additively with each other, other modifiers stack multiplicatively with each other. The whole point I'm just trying to make here is there is a lot of firepower in this kit, especially for one devoted unit, but even potentially for the party overall, depending on what you're trying to do. So the big thing that you're going to want to do is actually be able to get Martha to her NP. That being said, I do actually think that the heal is rather anemic for what it is. It is not the strongest heal at all. It does not really scale very well. It only goes up to 4,000. We have plenty of people out there that can easily out-heal this, either in one turn or over multiple turns. And that's going to be the issue that you're going to have with Martha, is you are not going to be looping her. You're not going to be getting her NP back over and over and over again. You're not going to be able to get a lot of healing out of this. So this is more of a, oh crap, temporary type stopgap maneuver. You're going to need someone else with a lot more survivability to help keep the party alive compared to someone like Martha. So Martha's real niche is going to be in providing that damage support, not necessarily in terms of, being able to be a healer for you and being able to use her profusely. I think that is going to be the problem that you're going to run into with her. Now, again, Martha's not going to be the most cracked unit. She's not going to always out-damage someone like Oberon. It's going to really come down to, do you actually have these niches in play? And I should denote that this is demon, not demonic. So keep that in mind, that there is some lesser applicability to something like that. But certainly, if you end up having these traits in play, if you're facing an enemy that actually does have them and you can't exploit this, yeah, that's a pretty insane power mod that you can actually apply. So it's definitely food for thought. It's definitely proved situationally useful, not only in her own lotto, not only in Tunguska, but elsewhere even on down the stretch. I have managed to sneak Martha in as somewhat of a third support, or again, just viable damage boosting option on numerous occasions. So don't sleep on her. I think you'll see that she's actually very fairly useful. As for what craft essences you're going to want to use on her, it's really not going to matter as a support. Like I said, you're going to want to try to get her charged if you want to try to get her NP off. But outside of those scenarios, you can take whatever you want. If you're really just trying to use her from some small amount of charge and attack up and defense down, you can do all of that. You can slap any sort of Bond CE, or again, any sort of QP CE or Mystic Code experience, whatever you want, in order to try and advance your goals as a master. So it definitely doesn't matter too much. Just real quick here to give you guys an idea and to look at her Bond CE though. As a support, you can sometimes get away with this, and you can see that she does have the ability to increase the party's damage against divinity, demon, and undead enemies by an additional 15%, as well as increase the party's healing received by 20% when she's on the field with this CE equipped. So not the worst thing in the world, but obviously you're only going to want to utilize this if you can get to the NP on top of this. Certainly you might be able to pair her up with other units like, say, Merlin, or maybe even a Proto-Merlin down the line that can maybe provide a little bit more sustain, a little bit more survivability, and still allow people to get to their NP on a more natural pace. But yeah, I do think this is at least something that you should pay attention to. So, again, let me know what you guys think about Martha. I think she can be a decent support for you guys in certain scenarios, and I'll be curious to read you guys' thoughts, as well as how hard will you guys be going in the lotto. Remember, it's only going to be a 9 to 10 day lotto, so don't expect too much time. curious to hear what you guys' goals will be for that lotto and how much you guys plan to get your farming done, especially with Tunguska coming up, as well as numerous other events after the turn of the year. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys found this informative, and I will see you guys for the next one. Okay, chat, we did it. Oh, hello, Peaceful. Martha Santa was meta for some 90+ plugs recently, kind of wild. Yeah, I don't think NA really quite understands how strong she can be. That like, you don't want to use her all the time, but there's times where it's like, wait, I can milk that, and you're like, oh shit, she's strong. 3 in a row, yeah. That was a number of reviews, it was. Like I said, the only thing we didn't do is we didn't talk about Saika Magoichi. She's the new welfare. The only reason I didn't talk about her is we don't know what her third append is yet. Obviously, we don't know what her final ascension form is either, but like, it is what it is. I assume we'll find out either tomorrow or whenever, right? I'm going to say this, I don't think the third append is going to make that big of a deal, but it might be something like, oh, anti-berserker or something like that, and then it'll actually be a good recommendation, so it just depends. Is there art of the welfare? I tweeted out the art. Avalon sent it to me as the art that the artist posted, which is honestly pretty nice. I swear to... Hold on, chat. Because I'm just like, it keeps trying to get me to log into Twitter, and I need to just do it off screen here, but like... Yeah, here was what I posted, right? So like, again, this is basically posted by the artist to Twitter, so you guys can see. She's Gun God Yatagarasu is what her NP is, so definitely some interesting stuff. I honestly, like, I get like Recreators vibes from this quite significantly, especially if you guys have watched the like trailer that she came out with. The music for this Guda event sounds like it's like something that Sawano would do, which is kind of awesome. Like, it's actually pretty good. Oh, she's cute? Yeah. I mean, chat, don't assume she's like Lolly. I don't think she is. I think this is just like a very beefy collar, right? But they have shown like what her attacks and stuff look like. Here, let me see if I can get logged in real quick. Okay, where were we, chat? I know I retweeted it. Where was it? Or did I not? Maybe I didn't. Let me go get it for you guys. Wait, nani? Nani? Is it posted in Discord then? Am I blind? It was just posted to YouTube, it looks like. But yeah, it's the YouTube short. Like, Do you hear that, chat? Like, let me turn the music off real quick. But like, tell me this shit doesn't sound like a Sawano track. Are you okay with her being platinum blonde? This is not platinum blonde. This is gray. Yeah, I get like Recreators, Common Area of the Iron Fortress vibes from that. Works thinks she has a decent amount of DACA. God damn it. Subreddit has non-shit video. Yeah, but is it the official video or is it just like subreddit has like some jank recording from another content creator? Yeah, I don't know why people bothered to post like the short of it rather than like the full widescreen. And we did get the new trailer, which is pretty badass.
かような市議に至るとはな。俺たちの誠。では救うとしましょう。これより再化を開始する。フェイトグランドオーダー。激走川中島24時。グダグダスーパー五稜郭。殺しのサインは M51。いざ風林火山の旗のもとに。
Okay, now chat. Yeah. So you've got Nobu like bleeding blood, right? And this like low-key chat, this looks like Hanoji, right? Like this is straight up like Nobu's betrayal. You got the dude bleeding out and dying right there to the Shinsengumi. I don't know if you guys could see that in the background. But basically like right back here, there's a Shinsengumi guy. He's got the Haori on. You've got Ant-Man battling Okita and what I assume is Virgil. Or is it? I don't actually know. Difficult to tell. And so, like, I'm assuming this dude's a new unit. We've already had to fight him in the story. If we don't, whatever. That's our new berserker. That's Shinpachi right there. That's just his third form. Yeah. I don't know about you. Looks like Kagatora to me. That looks like Bishamonten right there, right? So yeah, I think there's a lot of speculation we're gonna get a 5-star Kagatora. I don't know how many of you guys remember me saying that, like, literally this week on stream, that, like, what I would like to see is them go over Uesugi Kenshin and Kagatora more, and that would be really cool. So, hold it. But, like, honestly, that's going to be really cool if we actually do get it. If it's just the welfare, I'll at least be somewhat disappointed. But definitely, they appear to be going with the whole Uesugi Kenshin versus Takeda Shingen battle that actually did happen quite a bit in history. Those two battled each other, I think, reportedly over like 100 times or something like that. Yeah, chat, and like, if it wasn't obvious, there's the frickin' crazy eyes again. So, like, you know it's coming. And then here's Kagatora riding on a bike to try and distract you. But we all know that, like, low-key, she's just playing road rash. She's about to get out the nunchucks and just, like, slam into, you know, like, another bike next to her and just knock someone off. And then, yeah, I did see people ask me what did I think about Shingen. Shingen drives a Ferrari, which is, like, freaking hilarious. Like, sorry, it's not a Ferrari. It's a Takeda-rari. Yeah, he also drives a car, which is really cool. Hilariously enough, the Nobus drive cars in the event. I didn't get to show that to you guys today, but it is. Then you just have the battling going on. Chat, I think this may be the first time in all of Guda Guda that we've seen a battle that didn't involve Nobus. Like, don't skip over Aizen. What you mean? You mean discount Aizen, right? So there's your gun god. And then you mean this dude, right? This dude, the... And then there's all the rest of them. And you can see in the background the red dude, so I assume they're fighting on behalf of the Takeda. And then you've got like, oh god, it's a freaking like meteor coming down again. You've got Kagetora crying. And then, yeah, chat. That is not a spear that we see her using in her normal form. That is Takeda Shingen right there. That is Nagao Kagetora. So it's where I think there are some legitimate hints about there being a 5-star, and I could see it, right? Like, I hope so. I hope we get it. I think that'd be great. I think, like, if they pull back in Nana Mizuki for something like that, that's awesome. But, you know, Torak posed an interesting theory to me, and I do wonder if it's going to be true, and that's that, like, it's actually Bishamonten. Like, the war god, the Japanese war god Bishamonten, low-key, like, being like, hey, Weisugi Kenshin, I'm taking over right now. And so you end up seeing a little bit more of a deity-type form, and that could be really cool. So we'll just have to wait and see. Sword looks like sort of the creator from Three House. Yeah, I can see that. Official welfare NP video? Yeah, let me take a look. You know, if it wants to load here. Okay, so grenade launcher, SMG, and an assault rifle. Frickin' sniper rifle coming out. Actually, is that a sniper rifle or is that an anti-tank gun? That's an anti-tank gun, I think. Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? So like I said, I like this design of this event. I like when the Gudas center more on the Warring States period. So this is reminding me a lot of Guda 4. This one is definitely already piquing my interest way more than like Guda 6, Guda 7 did. Guda 5 I did like though. Like I didn't have any problem with Yamatai. I thought that was a pretty interesting spin on things. But like Guda 6, Guda 7 I wasn't the hugest fans of. So and Goku has a lot of potential in general. Well, especially for getting in some of the like beloved, you know, characters that people like from Japanese history. I think even the Japanese themselves want to see it. And I think that's a good idea for them. I like Guda 6 because of Oryu. Yeah, I can see that, right? Like, I didn't hate Guda 6 by any means, but it was not my favorite either. So. She looks like a Salido crit unit, double steroids over 50 stars with. Quick chain. Yeah, I could see that, right? Like, and like I said, we'll go over her a little bit more tomorrow. I just, when in doubt, I know everyone's always quick to rush out and get the information out as fast as possible. Not me. I try to be right? Like, I try to wait until we have all the info, give you guys the best one. It's not as good for my metrics. It's not super appreciated by the community. I don't get the best viewership. I don't get the best subscriber numbers or anything like that. But like, I don't know. I'd rather not have to deal with the headache of like people coming in and being like, "Nuh-uh, CAD." It's a lot better to just wait and be patient and to get it right. Do it right the first time, basically. I'm only looking forward to 7 because of T Granny. Yeah. Guda 3 because of Redline. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have problems with the early Gudas. It's only really been Guda 6 and Guda 7 that I was kind of meh about. And you guys kind of saw what I meant about like the detective missions too. They're an interesting mechanic, but there's like only so much you can do with them because you didn't have any control over what ones you got. And it just kind of became this, well, you can do as much as you can, but you can't like really go crazy. Seven has EO, who's my next Grail target. How dare you Grail someone from an event that I just said I was less interested in? It's fine. Like I said, I think EO especially is a good unit, but the one thing I am going to point out to people is you're going to hear this mantra with EO. And that mantra is that EO is this like cracked welfare and that she's super better than other welfares. I want you to understand something. EO is basically as good as freaking what's her face Avenger that we just got, as Ranmaru. Okay. The only difference is EO had a couple of nodes where she was very usable for 90++ content because they were Moon Cancer nodes. So using a ruler in them was really nice, and EO was a welfare loopable ruler that had extra damage against Divine that just worked really well in that niche. So it's not that like EO is some insane unit, right? You don't need to feel the reason like, and I know when I say this that Avalon's not thinking along these lines, but it's like you don't have to feel the need to like grail her or something like that. Like, you're going to see people that like her that are grailing her. You're going to see people that are going to tell you that this unit is good for those nodes. But chat, I can tell you this flat out that outside of like those 2 nodes that I've used her in, I haven't used EO at all. Like it's literally just been those 2. And even those 2, I just use Buddy instead the majority of the time. So it's not that I couldn't do other things. Why is Cad cosplaying as Star-Lord? Because Cad is cold, and so Cad is wearing his jacket. I use Ranmaru because she's cute and likable. Yeah, and that's all I'm trying to say is like her performance is actually very comparable to Ranmaru. The big thing that she has is the extra power mod and crit damage that Ranmaru doesn't have. And outside of that, I think you'll see that she's just solid, but she's not like the end-all be-all. What's the temperature like in Florida? I have no idea off the top of my head right now. I know it was like in the 40s today. So cold for me. Anything under 70 degrees is cold for me. As someone with a 120 Ranmaru, I would still say that EO is by far better. No, see, I wouldn't. I would say EO has the crit damage, EO has the power mod, and that's it. Like the actual like loopability and performance is pretty much the same. If you have invested in a 5-star to farm, you aren't going to change it just because the new 4-star is a free unit that shows up. Yeah, I agree with that, right? Like, but the whole point and why I'm saying this is I'm trying to get out ahead of that sort of narrative. You guys are going to hear that. I'm just warning you. Just be aware that people are going to hype EO up, and it's not that EO is bad. I'm not telling you that. Just don't like buy into the hype, really. Like, understand that people are going to be very much extolling the virtues of a unit because they got to use a unit in like 2 nodes. Okay? And that's really all it is. It's nothing like she's not bad, she's absolutely fine. But she's not like the most OP unit ever or anything like that. The Ryan loop's better at a base level, yeah. EO is easier to skill than Ranmaru? Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, right? That's rulers versus Avengers, though. That's not even a, like, real consideration other than, like, for big macro stuff. EO has a slightly better kit than Ranmaru. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, too. Is I think it's slightly better, but overall, in terms of, like, you know, just normal performance, I think they're pretty samey. Actually, I had to defend someone, defend Ramaru at some point against someone trashing her while comparing her to Io. No. Let me explain that one to you, okay? It's 100% that person had a Space Ishtar or a, like, Summer Kama sitting in their back pocket. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Like, every single time you see someone trying to shit on a unit, it is usually because they have a preference and they're just trying not to disclose it. And so it's usually one of the first things I'll pick apart is like, oh, well, who do you use? Well, my level 100 in P5, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, that's probably why you're making this argument. So, like I said, I'm not a big person to, like, trash units. You'll hear me try to, like, calm down rhetoric more than I will ever trash a unit. I think this game has plenty enough units. You guys have plenty enough options. You can use what you want, right? Like, as long as you have your niches, well, sorry, not even niches, as long as you have, like, your bases covered, right? As long as you have the supports that you kind of need to support those units well. You're probably pretty good. And then from there, it comes down to using the units that you want to use. I think the only content out there that's really bucked that trend is the 90++ content, and you don't have to do it other than, like, one time to get the clear. So there's no real requirement to do it. And even if you want to do it, there's also no requirement to 3-turn it. So a lot of it boils down to, do you really want to 3-turn it? And to me, the only time that you really want to 3-turn a 90++ node is Lotto. And that's really it. And from there, like, you don't have to do the ++ node in a Lotto. You can just do a plus, and that'll be fine. So it really just kind of boils down to what you're trying to do. I'm looking at looping damage numbers, and Io does quite a lot more damage. I don't think so. Yeah, it like, a lot of this is just going to boil down to how you're running the numbers and stuff like that. I don't know, right? Like, I don't like getting in arguments over numbers too much. And the reason why is because, why? Like, why does there need to be that ultimate comparison? Is the unit doing 2,000 more going to break the unit? No. Is the unit doing 2,000 less going to be trash? No. Like, it's usually making a mountain out of a molehill. Did you low roll or high roll? Yeah, that too. That matters little, right? I've had to defend Tamamo, my waifu, from people that compared her to Castoria. Oh my god, I felt like I was better off watching paint dry. So, like, is Castoria a more usable unit than Tamamo? I mean, yeah, I kind of think so. I think that's just due to the nature of the strength of Castoria's kit. But does that make Tamamo a bad unit? No. Right? Like, does that make Tamamo dead? No. Like, I never understood the narrative of Castoria exists, Tamamo dead. And I'm like, huh? Because chat, let me tell you what. We went through the same narrative with Merlin. Koyanskaya exists. Oberon exists. Merlin's dead. Can't use me. Wow, he's dead. Like, how stupid is that? Like, Koyanskaya and Oberon, unless you were able to 3-turn that challenge fight, ain't getting you through it. Congratulations on your bricked unit, or congratulations on not having the damage when you're set up for damage to be able to finish the fight in time. then what do? Oh, I guess I take the NP to the face and die. Like, you gotta have some sustain in certain fights, and that is what Merlin specializes in. It does not matter. Even a unit like Proto Merlin coming out, I still saw people try to be like, Merlin's dead now. And it's like, nope, he's still good, chat. He's still usable. He's still, in some ways, better than Proto Merlin. I actually like Merlin's sustain a little bit more than Proto Merlin's. Where I'm going to use Proto Merlin? When it's an arts comp. Where I'm going to use Merlin is when it's a buster comp. So it really just comes down to utilizing the unit effectively. And if you're not utilizing the unit effectively, who's to blame for the unit's poor performance? Right? If anyone reduced his relevancy in the meta, I would argue it's Proto Merlin. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, even Proto Merlin is not an actual replacement for him, so. Proto Merlin exists, Merlin needs a buff. I do think there's certain things that Proto Merlin does better than Merlin. I also think there's certain things that Merlin does better than Proto Merlin, so. Simple logic, players are easily down bad, yeah. If Gio gave you 2 fucking Merlins, you could use, you dumb fucks. Yes. With Proto Merlin, now we can run triple Merlin? Yes. Problem exists between phone and chair? Yeah, or as it's known in other circles, problem exists between keyboard and chair, right? PEBCAC. And that's usually the very convoluted way of saying operator error. Like, it's just a simple user error issue. Summer comma exists. Space Ishtar clearly needs a buff, right, Cad? No. No. Because Summer comma can't change her in P-type. Isn't that right, Bob? Agree with me, and I'll make the same argument for Summer Bell and Summer Bunny needing a buff. Yeah, but I mean, I think Summer Bunny just needs a buff by virtue of being at the bottom of the list, right? Like, not that, like, oh my god, she's trash. I mean, that's been a wild one for me too, chat. Do you know how many years I've sat here and just been like doing the whole Willy Wonka pose of like, you're saying Bunny is bad. Tell me more. Like, being like, oh, I'm gonna love hearing this because I'm confident. I know how to use my waifu, and I've used her to great effect on this stream. So I think any one of you that have watched me use her and pop off with her know how strong she can be. And it's one of those deals where people criticizing her, like, it's the same thing that we talk about all the time. It's like, clearly these people only care about NP numbers, and that's it. They don't actually think about how to appropriately use the unit. So, Tomacat buffs? I mean, Tomacat's had some buffs. I think Tomacat's just in a weird spot because Tomacat's not the most loopable unit. And damage-wise, you know, I think you can compare to someone like, say, Fran out there, and Fran's come a long way and is just really solid still. So, that being said, like, how often do we even talk about Fran anymore in that regard? So, definitely an interesting unit. I think at the end of the day, the thing that I'm more of a fan of is they need to address the quick system overall, and then from there we can start to look at the individual units. Not that you can't buff the individual units in the meantime, just that I think it's weird to me, and, you know, I was talking with Avalon about this today, that sometimes, like, refund numbers just work out really weird with Quick, which kind of seemingly points to more in the future, like that there's some other support that's going to support a little bit better. I don't really know, because it just does not make a whole lot of sense to me. Like chat, even straight up, this new welfare has very weird refund numbers. Like, with one hit of overkill, it's like 24 point something %, which is like, okay, why? Like, why didn't you make that like 30 or like 20 or like it's really odd. So I don't quite understand what they're doing with Quick at times. They make it harder on themselves. I cleared the Guda 6 CQ using Castoria, Ryoma, Rider, and Merlin. Easy 13 turns. Yeah. And some people be like, oh, well, I cleared up in 3 turns, so your comp's bad. It doesn't matter as long as you clear, right? Like, Japan likes weird percentages, maybe, right? Like, if it were pi or something like that, I could understand. David Okuni's refund, yeah. All right, chat. It's 11 o'clock. I have recorded 3 videos for you today. I don't know if I'll get all 3 out tomorrow. I will at least get you 1. I can promise you. In the meantime, you know, stay tuned. Tomorrow we've got roles. The roles of the century. The roles of the millennium. Okay? Like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going to be talking about these roles. They're important to me. I will finally be completing the Saberface collection on NA. So maybe I'll do something special for that. But I hope to see you guys all there for that tomorrow. We'll chill out, have some fun. And in the meantime, let me see who I can send you guys off to. I see a Mr. Zephyr on, so I'm going to send you guys his way. He is doing some more Savage progression. If you guys have never seen Final Fantasy rating, watching Zephyr is an eye-opening experience as to how crazy that can be. But again, I will see you guys tomorrow. Like I said, just stay tuned. If you guys haven't already, check me out on YouTube. Check me out on Twitter. I always appreciate the follow there. And if you guys haven't, get on the Discord. We have a great community on there. Always happy to have you. So again, go give Zephyr my love, and I will see you guys on the other end. And you YouTube mother lovers, stay classy. See you guys later.